So we will call to order now. I'll call the Select Board meeting of February 21st, 2023 to order. Tonight's meeting is being recorded live on RCTV, Comcast Channel 22, Verizon Channel 33, and the videographer for tonight's meeting is Rob. Tonight's agenda, we will start out with public comment, then Select Board Liaison reports, Town Manager report. We're going to discuss and vote on in-person early voting. Presented by the town clerk. We'll have a presentation from the Reading Open Land Trust. We are going to discuss parking violation fees and potential changes. And I believe we'll have a presentation from PTTF tonight.
From Lieutenant Jones.
Lieutenant Jones, great. Okay. We have a hearing for a change of manager at Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza. The second hearing.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, we were muted.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yep.
Sorry. I think I'm going to go back. Hey, folks, sorry that we muted you on Zoom, so we'll come back live. Tonight's meeting will start with public comment. We'll do Select Board Liaison and Town Manager reports, discuss and vote on in-person early voting, a presentation from the Reading Open Land Trust. We will have a discussion about parking violation fees and potential changes. We have two hearings this evening. The first is for change of manager at Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza, and the second relates to a presentation and discussion on the recommended budget for fiscal '24. We then will have a presentation from the Reading Climate Advisory Committee. This evening, we need to close the warrant for April town meeting, so we'll vote on that. We'll get some updates on the Meadowbrook Lot 5 property and proposed usage, discussion about a strategic plan for Reading, which we've talked about at a couple of previous meetings. We will not be having the VASC recommendations this evening because of a timing issue and the Monday holiday. We'll discuss future agendas, approve meeting minutes, and that should be us for the evening. So why don't we open up? Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, thank you, Mark and Adele, for listening to me about the open meeting laws. Like everything else, I went back and read the instructions. And it's very interesting because one thing I found in here, once we adopt the electronic, which we have, public bodies must consistently use the main most current notices also. A description of the website, including the direction on how to locate the notices on the website, must, and I repeat, must, also be posted on or adjacent to the main or handicap access entrance to the building. We've never done that. So I suggest every meeting we've ever had is illegal. Okay? Where the clerk's offices are located, and I think that now the next one. Note that the meeting notices must still be available in or around the clerk's office so that members of the public may view notices during normal working hours. Friday is not a normal working hour, so that was the reason for the lapse. And that will happen again on the Tuesday after Memorial Day, if my math is correct. So I don't think there's anybody's ever had a notice published outside of any city hall or town hall that I know of, but it's in there and it's still current. Because Laura just ran me up a copy of the open meeting law. So I'm going to suggest maybe we should put a couple of bulletin boards up outside. And then that would preclude anything happening again. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Others for public comment. Nancy, please.
Nancy, Dr. Pearl Street. Tonight, when you're reviewing the budget, I'd really like you to consider keeping the funding for the public health as is and not reducing it by what is close to 6% in your package. I think it's 5.9. Reading, along with probably every single community, has steadily decreased funding to public health since I think 2008. And if the pandemic has not told us anything, we need a very strong health department. It's taken us until now to have really an adequate, and I use that word, adequate health department. It is still underfunded. I am concerned, even when I listen to a recent Board of Health meeting, that they might not even have the funding to complete their community health needs assessment survey. we really need to not cut public health, but I'm asking you to increase the funding. When I listened to the budget presentations last year, the end of last year, and I, see that the police department, and keep this in mind, I am the granddaughter of a police chief, so I have the utmost respect for our chief and our police department. But when I hear that they want an increase to cover dog food, and we're talking about underfunding our health department, that gives me pause. So I'm asking you to really look at this budget. If you can't increase the funding, do not cut it. Do not be penny wise, pound foolish. We're not out of the pandemic. And this is really something that's essential for Reading, to have a well-funded and adequate health department. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Other members that would like to speak? Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tim Powers. I'm a resident on Green Street. I'll try to keep it short. So I have a gym located behind me, Tread Gym, 13 High Street. Tried numerous times talking to the owner about the noise reduction, and I think I first contacted her in November, and here I am in February, still trying to find a solution for it, I guess. So today I went around talking to my neighbors, asking if they have the same problem, and they all agree that the noise level is it's to a point where I'm putting in earplugs at night because it wakes me up every morning, 5:30 in the morning, no problem. So I went around talking to my neighbors, seeing if they have the same problem, and a lot of them agree. They signed a petition. I don't know if anyone would want to see it, but I don't know. I guess I'm kind of just not looking for anything as far as I want their hours changed or anything like that, but just maybe a noise restriction where it's not affecting any of the residents on the next street over, because and it's not just in the morning, especially at night, it'll get even worse because it's not so early in the morning. But say you walk down Green Street right now, I guarantee I could repeat what they're saying on their microphone. So I don't know. I guess I'm just looking for a solution. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just yeah, please, if you could give a copy, that would be great. And just to clarify, what we do with public comment is we are able to listen to whatever comments residents have to make. We don't actually respond at this meeting to it, but in the audience, I think I see the town manager, and I think that there'll be some follow-up.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thanks. Can I just ask, which, is it the High Street one or Linden?
High Street.
Okay.
High Street, but I've also heard Linden has had problems too. Because I've been calling the town hall and stuff, and I guess they had neighbors that complained over there too. So
Thanks.
yeah.
Any other members of the public that would like to speak this evening? None in the audience. Caitlin, anybody online that would like to speak?
I don't have anyone raising their hand.
Last call. All right, great, thanks. Let's go on to liaison reports. Anyone want to be first?
I'll go.
Fire away, Carol, please.
So CBDC last week, right, Jackie? So Jackie helped me cover the first part, and then she stayed on the call because it was at a conflict. But so I'll let Jackie go over the first part of the meeting because I wasn't there for that. But when I jumped on, it was the housing production plan that we were presented, and Andrew gave an update, pretty detailed, like we were given, and then they actually voted on it 4-0 to adopt the housing production plan. And then they just did a lot of planning updates. They had executive session, which I did not attend. And then they came back from executive session, And then just about general planning updates for the board in the future. Nothing, that's planned, but just what's going to be happening in the coming months and the rest of the year. And that was really it. And unfortunately, Recreation Committee couldn't meet because of quorum. I don't know the exact reasons, a little different than the CPDC, I think, where some people were away or whatnot. But so they're meeting this week via Zoom on a couple items that are critical to the previous meeting's agenda. So they're not having a full meeting, they're having an abbreviated Zoom meeting. So I'll let Fidel or Jackie talk later about the volunteer opportunities that we need in town. I mean, they have a decent group, but they still need more members there. And that's it. And a side note, not really related, we had another kerfuffle, construction-related, notice-related / timing issue, and it got resolved, but I decided to meet, well, I didn't decide, I asked, and Fidel facilitated a meeting with engineering and DPW, just how can we can do a better job, and that's gonna be maybe a bigger discussion for us, but how we can do a better job communicating for major construction that's not emergency related. And there's a lot of moving parts, obviously, to construction, but the main reason was for downtown and to be cognizant of the businesses and their livelihoods and just try to do as much as we can as a town to mitigate the impact on downtown businesses, and especially during the holidays. Because we know we had the issue in December that caused a lot of issues, and then something unfortunate happened on Valentine's Day that got resolved pretty quickly, but it still shouldn't have happened. And we discussed that and a bunch of other things, and I'll probably ask on future agendas to.
Yeah, since it is. Can I ask on the recreation side, will you have information and a vote from them in time for our next meeting? And would we be able to put something onto our
For the-
next agenda or the second?
Yeah, it's mainly the fence that was discussed. That's one. Yes, it should be.
For the first March meeting?
Yeah, as long as they all attend. Yeah, it's
Okay.
a Zoom meeting on purpose. It's vacation week, that too. So Ariel, so if I haven't heard that it's not going to happen, I think it's Thursday. I'll be away, but I'm gonna attend via Zoom as well, so to give an update. Yep.
Okay, thanks. Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so we're not going to be voting on the VASC people tonight, but Jackie and I did have the VASC meeting with 3 and then 4 individuals, actually. One came at the last second. And I got some good feedback on how residents are finding out about volunteer opportunities, and it was actually pretty all over the place. So one was word of mouth, one was on the website, sort of kind of hard to find, which I'll talk to you, Fidel, afterwards about maybe updating the section that's on there. And then one other person just volunteered before, so they kind of knew the drill, so they, it's a good thing to see them repeat. And then for some reason, everyone's like a lawyer at this point who applied. Like, I think 2 out of 4 were lawyers or something.
Oh,
So-
they actually were lawyers?
Yes,
Oh,
actually,
sorry.
and one is like a zoning lawyer, like, who applied for zoning board of appeals, so it's good to see that the word is getting out there. That's only 4, we have another 30-ish to go. So definitely if, on the website, you just go to the top right and pick how do I, and then it's volunteer opportunities is there. But no, a lot of real great interviews, and Jackie and I learned a lot, so.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Chris. Karen?
Sure. So I had the opportunity, I'm not the liaison for PAIR, I'm not sure who it is, but I did have the opportunity to attend a fantastic program. Kudos again to the library and our director of DEI. It involved a presentation by the RMHS high school students. Students of color and allies presented in their own words what they have experienced as students in Reading, and also they provided some very illustrative media components to the room. And what was also remarkable is that we had a contingent from North Reading. They don't have a group like PEAR in North Reading, and they are very interested in what we're doing. And so that was wonderful. Welcome to see them and happy to see them. So I highly recommend folks, if you get a chance, go to a PEAR meeting. I've probably been to 3 or 4 of them over the past year, and they're always incredibly worthwhile. RMLD met, and so if anybody's been following the news, we added a major hydropower contract recently to the portfolio, and they referenced again that we will soon be deleting the biomass contract. This board made a resolution in 2021, I think, to stop the Palmer biomass facility from being built, as it was being built in Springfield with one of the highest asthma and air pollution rates in the country. So kind of a technical component at this point. It was a very large contract, and the plant will not be built, so it will expire, I believe, at the end of March. So just that's a great news. Also, RMLD did recently approve additional rate increases. A little bit of good news. I did speak up that I am quite concerned that there is a fuel stabilization fund that has not been used to offset some of these increases, but gas prices have collapsed. So as power purchases have passed through to the ratepayers, that 9% should be less than 9% coming through. So it's a little bit of news for now. I think people are, I didn't ask if they were gonna roll back these price increases. I think at this point, they wanna make sure that these gas prices stay low, and then, I think we should address it again. But that's good news in the short term. I also attended the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they did have a quorum, but they are concerned and expressed concern to me that they should have a 5-member board, and they have 4 members, so they always have to be 100% in agreement. And did you all get an application? I'm forgetting. I did, okay, good. Good, so perhaps that will be remedied very sooner rather than later, so that was good. And then I was invited to the Zero Waste Caucus Policy Forum, which was held in Lexington. Catherine Clark was the major presenter, but a coalition of, I would say, about 14 of our state reps have gotten together, and state senators, including Senator Jason Lewis. So that was really illuminating. Massachusetts is one of the only states in the union that still has a bottle bill in force and on the books. And there is talk at the State House of because our use of this bottle bill is so low, we return maybe 30 to 40% of all of the materials that could be returned in. There are a number of bills in the House talking about expanding and updating the bottle bill. Perhaps you raise the deposit and you encourage small businesses to make it much more convenient for people to bring their returns back. And so that's one item that was discussed. Another item that was discussed was a bill that Catherine Clark is working on, which is called, excuse me, I'm just looking at my notes, the Break Free from Plastics Bill. This caucus, in addition to the quantity of plastics, it is the quality of the plastics. We all know, I think, that only 5% of plastics are able to be recycled, and this was reiterated at this caucus. And something else that our legislators and Senator Rep Clark are looking at is that we need to start considering taking out clean drinking containers from the recycle bin. So water containers, juice containers, glass and plastic. Those are considered clean containers versus we're putting a lot of other thing in recycle bins with chemicals, technically they're recyclable, but the truth is, once the contaminated plastic is mixed with the clean plastic, it can't be recycled into new water bottles. It can only be downcycled into rubber mats and things like that. So we're going to hear more about that, and it was very scary. One quote that resonated with me was that So we know that the petroleum industry needs to think about the future. And it was represented by Kirsty Pecci, who's the founder of Just Zero. Plastic and the manufacturing and the distribution of plastic is the petroleum industry's plan B. And that is really scary. So that was great. That's all I got. Thanks.
Ms. Karen? Jackie?
Sure, thanks, Mark. Just three quick updates. First, as Carlo mentioned, we attended the CPDC meeting last week. Thankfully, there was a quorum, and the commission approved a minor site plan review for the next phase of the Birch Meadow complex. And so this includes an exit at the former Imagination Station, Coolidge Middle School, junior high crosswalk. There will also be in that parking lot some areas that will be marked for school bus stopping areas during big events with school buses. There were some questions from the commission about lot lights, and Jenna, Community Services Director, talked about her work with Andrew and what we can look forward to on phase 2, which includes things like a walkway, restrooms, some of the other items that we've heard about. And there's also going to be some focus groups and community engagement on some of those issues, but at least with respect to the exit and school bus areas, those were approved by CPDC. Second item, I attended a legislative breakfast co-hosted by the North Reading Chamber. There was also chambers from Linfield, Stoneham, and Wakefield in attendance, and our state delegation was there. Representative Jones talked about his priorities for things like estate tax reform and targeted tax relief. He also talked about the fact that up on Beacon Hill, many of the issues aren't necessarily R&D, and he talked about how he's working with the new administration. Rep. Haggerty talked about funding for things like housing, transportation, and Chapter 70 state aid for school funding. And then Senator Lewis talked about his priorities of things like healthcare costs and workforce development. And then the last item, just to follow on with what Chris said about the interviews that we did for VASC, Chris had a great question in terms of how the applicants heard about the opening. And as he mentioned, we heard everything all across the map, but one thing that really struck me was that I think at least one person was essentially recruited on a one-to-one basis. And so I think, just as a reminder, it's on all of us, anyone watching or in the audience who's a town meeting member or a board or committee member, to get the word out with friends and neighbors, and hopefully we'll have more folks to meet on this soon for, like Chris said, the other 30-odd vacancies. So, thanks.
Thanks, Jackie. Couple of quick updates. The Council on Aging met last Monday, so 8 days ago, and had some very strong support. I'm just going to read very briefly. They support the effort of the Select Board, the Reading Center for Active Living Committee, RECALC, and the 1,470 people that completed a townwide survey, notification of which was mailed to all residents. Basically, their statement is just very supportive of the understanding in the community of the needs for a new facility with improved accessibility, inclusivity, and programming for the target population of age 60-plus residents. And there are some discussions going on. There's a RECALC meeting tomorrow night, in fact, discussions on kind of how to take that forward, what RECALC's next step is. And then I think we as a board on a future agenda item need to talk about how we want to either add to their charge or decide that it's the end for that group and kind of on to the next for the next activities with the senior center. So that's kind of coming up. On the care side, but actually more a group called Cato that's in town, there is a screening of a Netflix documentary called Bill Russell Legend that's taking place at the Reading Public Library Community Room Thursday, March 2nd at 6:30. Actually, it's the first half that you're going to see, because it turns out there are two parts to it. It's about 3 hours long. I've watched the first half myself on Netflix, and it's very powerful. Reading is actually prominently featured in this documentary. There's quite a bit of footage of Reading and discussions. their experience while living in Reading. But I think it's an important community event. That's Thursday, March 2nd, 6:30 in the community room at the Reading Public Library. And with that, I will pass it to you, Fidel.
Sorry, I forgot a big one, sorry. Simon's Way Committee met, last week. And so we went over, Jane Wellman attended and helped us with the survey, very short one, but important, that's gonna be made available next week, starting the 27th and run through up until town meeting. So I urge everyone to take that survey. This is about the Simon's Way property that we bought 4 years ago. The town meeting approved, and we've had several meetings. So again, with Jane Wellman's guidance, we developed, I think, 6 questions. You think, Angela? 6 questions, and again, they'll be available on the website, and I encourage everyone to take the survey so we can get the results and go over them and share them and whatnot. So sorry I missed that one.
No worries. Obviously, do the survey as soon as possible. Do you know when it's going to be closed? Is it do it in the next few weeks, kind of?
No, well over a month. Well over a month, up until
Town meeting.
April, well into April. So it's no sense of urgency, but, we'll mention it every meeting a little bit, because that's what we do, and try to get as many people to take it as well. And, share it when it goes live. Anyone of us on social media, except Mark, can share it with the general public.
Great, thanks.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. I'll be brief. So before you is the FY24 budget. It's you might notice some changes to the budget. And there's an item on the agenda tonight for us to preview that budget. I think it's a good upgrade. We kept the general feel of the budget, but made some upgrades to the content, and I'll walk the board through it in a few minutes. Also, before you is the town meeting warrant. I feel like we are all set for town meeting, and after the select board votes tonight, we'll start the kind of the community outreach process of the articles. One article in particular that I want to just highlight is the article about the purchase of cards for residents. So what we did ahead of this meeting is we asked the manufacturer essentially to give us the option of sizes, right? So a lot of residents have shared concerns with regards to having a barrel that is too large. So what they have done is they have sent us the 3 available sizes that they have. The smallest one is a 32 gallon. The size in between is a 48 gallon, and the size that we originally presented to the select board is a 64 gallon. I do hope that the select board and the town doesn't take a Goldilocks approach, right? And kind of say, which one is right for you. The more that we standardize, the better it is, financially and for process. But it is something that is available to us as a tool. And our plan is if the select board chooses to place this article in town meeting, we're going to have probably 2 public forums that are hosted by DPW. We've already had articles on the topic, and we've heard from a lot of residents already. On the warrant also is an article to provide potentially additional funding for the Birch Meadow Phase 1 project. If you recall, the select board voted $1.5 million to complete the entire project, and the architect gave us an updated pricing just a few months ago of $2.2 million. And a lot of it was related to COVID-19, inflation, et cetera. Luckily, and I'll say that the jury's still out, so the project is being bid in two sections. One is the parking lot and the roadway portions, and the other portion is the actual pavilion, mostly because there are two different kinds of contractors with two different kind of procurement laws, basically a building versus roadway. We received the bids for the roadway portion, and they came in at $1.2 million, which is good news to us. It is not entirely good news because we still got to fund the building, but at least we do have some capacity to fund the building. The building bids will open next Tuesday on the 28th, and at your meeting on March 7th, we'll give you a full update on those bids. And just on the VAST process, I know the Chronicle has ran an article on the need for volunteers. We continue to blitz social media and all our newsletters, and I know that the Reading Post has ran an article on it already. But we'll continue to just put out the word of our need for volunteers.
Quick question, your roadway, you said came in at 1.2. What was the original budget for the roadway portion?
It was about 1.8. It was about 1.8.
Well, I'm sorry, the original budget, when we did the 1.5 total for the roadway and the buildings, how much of it was the roadways?
I don't
Any
recall
idea?
that. I don't recall that. That was last summer in July. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more than.
It is more. Yeah.
Okay, great. Chris?
Bid out, does that include the lacrosse wall thing? Does that get bid out, or how does that work?
The lacrosse bid is included in that, yes,
Sorry, which one, in the roadway or in the?
in the roadway. So the pavilion bid is for the building, and it's only because it's with building bids, it's another section of Mass General Law that deals with procurement, 129 versus 30B.
So we don't have to worry about that then? Because it already came back.
We will have fully funded at least the roadway portion, and if approved by the select board, it's our intent to approach town meeting with moving money from another project to fully fund this project.
Any other questions, board members? All right, let's roll on. Next item is discuss and vote on in-person early voting. I see Laura in the corner.
Hi.
Hi there. So board members, we have this in our packet. Has anything changed, Laura?
No, sir.
Okay. So board members, we're being asked to, obviously we can talk about it, but also to, I guess, accept your recommendation, Laura's recommendation in terms of what to do. See if I highlight it correctly. We would have mail-in voting would be yes, in-person early voting. The recommendation would be to do it during weekdays when town hall is open
Correct.
and man that here. And then the other option that we could consider would be the Saturday, in which case we'd have to man and fund that.
Right, so just to make it clear, the Board of Registrars have not voted for the Saturday. So if you decide to, if you approve that, then I would have to go to them for their approval before we can hold the early voting those those hours.
Okay, board members, any questions, discussion? Chris?
Thanks, Mark, and thanks, Laura, for that. Yeah, like I mentioned last time, if it's not costing us anything on March 27th to the 30th, I don't see why not. But I think that just having an extra this Saturday and having to pay for it with, I believe you said it would be potentially low turnout, but you can never guarantee it. I just don't see the value in spending the money for that on a weekend day, especially with just mail-in voting. If a weekend is an issue for you, then just get a mail-in ballot and call it a day, and then you don't have to leave your house. So.
And, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make it clear that, I will be here that day because of, or last day to register to vote. I, being here by myself, can do an absentee ballot with someone. So if someone wants to come in on a Saturday and fill out the absentee form and sign under penalty of perjury that they're not gonna be in town on the day of the election, they can vote absentee that day. Whereas if it's early voting, I have to have 4 people here. Does that make sense?
So there's an option, basically.
Correct.
Other questions or comments, folks? No? Good, or?
I just want to, I guess I'd hear the motion because I don't know what the
Fair
motion
enough.
is.
I have two separate ones.
Two separate ones.
So the first was the 27th through the 30th, and then the second one is March 25th at Town Hall from 9 to 5, which is
That's a
Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. So can you let's read the first one and then we can go through that one.
Move to conduct in-person early voting for the April 4th town election during normal town hall hours on March 27th through March 30th at the town clerk's office as recommended by the Board of Registrars.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jackie. Any discussion? Not appearing. Let's take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0. And the second motion, please.
The second one is move to conduct in-person early voting for the April 4th town election on March 25th at Town Hall, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. if approved by the Board of Registrars.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion on this one? I think I'm with you, Chris. I think that for potential modest turnout, and given that we have an option of an absentee ballot, it seems like we're affording good options here. It seems quite reasonable to me. Any other comments? All right, so we will take a vote for this. So voting, a yes vote would be in favor of having Saturday, a no vote would be against having Saturday. So all those in favor, please raise your hand.
So
I'm sorry.
can I just ask, so to be clear, so there's a motion in front of us which kind of indicates that staff would like to do this? Is that, I just want to make sure I read the room correctly.
So I just wanted to make it clear that all the voters have the option to do early voting or absentee. It doesn't make a difference on the work level for me if we do either one, absentee or early voting. It does make a difference to the voter in the amount of paperwork that they have to do. And also the fact that they have to sign under penalty of perjury that they won't be in Reading on election day. That's the only, so if you want to, I just wanted to give you the option to offer it to the residents, because I have to be here anyway.
Okay,
It's, it doesn't make a difference on our level.
thank you for that clarification.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Other questions? No, okay, so again, a yes vote would be to say, let's do Saturday, and would require the registrars to vote as well. A no vote would be not do in-person voting on Saturday, but as Laura just mentioned, there's another option with absentee ballot. Okay, so all those in favor of Saturday, please raise your hand. 0, all those against. So we are 0-5, so that part does not pass.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, I'm glad I asked.
Any other questions or anything? Thank you. Good?
Thanks.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Next, Reading Open Land Trust. Bob, I see you right there. Come join us, please.
Thank you. We have some slides somewhere.
Caleb, you can put, yeah, there you go. She's ready. Thank you.
So anyway, I want to thank the board for letting Reading Land Trust do their presentation. And my name is Bob Connor. I'm the treasurer of the Land Trust. So this is our mission in life, is to provide land for passive recreation, open space, wetland prevention, to prevent flooding. And as most of you know, in many places, the flooding has become a severe problem. So I think our land would be more and more valuable in the future. And the other point I want to make is that we are not a government agency. We are a nonprofit. We are a 501c3. Donations are tax deductible. I know it's confusing. People see conservation land, they see land trust, and they think we're all together. We are separate, so I have to make that point. Next slide, please. So this is our website. Thanks to Intertwine Media. They did a great job. They've done, I think, the Reading Library and a few other places. I think it came out well. This lists all our land. It lists the donors. It lists our philosophy, talks about it a bit. It also has our email. If you want to get a hold of the land trust, it's listed on the bottom, I believe. Next slide. So Ben Nichols, Harry Finneman, a few others started the trust for the reason of allowing people to donate land. And one of the big sticking points was that people would have a deadline to move or whatever. And if town meeting was not in session, they could not do this conveniently. So it was decided to form the trust, and one benefit is that people can come to us and hopefully we can expedite it if town meeting has that big hiatus. So that was part of the philosophy. Next slide, please. So we own 10 parcels of land. The biggest is 32 acres. The smallest is a half an acre, about twice the size of this room, I think. But most of it is wetland, but the Boyd property is fairly dry. It abuts Johnson Woods, and we're looking into the possibility of trails there. And if people want to donate land, we'll consider any kind of land. It doesn't have to be dry, it doesn't have to be wet. But it does have to make sense, so we wouldn't take a house lot in the middle of a neighborhood that was 10,000 square feet, because they end up becoming dumping grounds, to be blunt. And it doesn't fit in, it doesn't work out. So that's kind of where we're at. We do like donations, but we are in a position the people just have to be paid for this land. We can, at this point, pay for land if it makes sense. Obviously, we can't buy a house lot for $500,000, but if it's a reasonable piece of land for a reasonable piece of money, the land trust is certainly willing to negotiate. So I want to make that point clear. Next slide. This is just a picture of Goodale Marsh. This is on Haverhill Street, right near Franklin. It's 6 acres plus, and it abuts the North Cedar Swamp, which is a huge piece of land, I believe. So, again, this land can be accessed on the right. If you stated off the property, there's a stone wall, you can go back in. But most of our land is wet, so it really makes sense if you want to see it when there's snow on the ground. It's great for snowshoeing. Next slide. Fairbanks Marsh, the sign is where the parking area is that's problematic. I'm going to discuss that in 1 minute. And then we just jump to the next slide. Now this kind of looks out, and you'd be surprised how many times you go down there and you'll see deer actually in the background. There's a lot of deer in this neck of the woods. So it's 30 plus acres. It's a beautiful piece of land. Next slide. Finneman Ice Pond is on Main Street. You'd have to park on Fairchild, but you can actually go from Main Street to Van Norden on conservation land, Sledge Woods, Nichols Woodlot, and then there's a piece of land that's has a conservation restriction on it, so I believe that would be legal to cross that. So that's a pretty big piece of land that can be crossed. Next slide. So this is our board members. We have a couple of new ones. Gene Jacobs was our clerk before, and Pat Lloyd was on for many years. I just wanted to give a shout out to those two for their service. We're looking for, as everybody else is in town, for new members. Preferably if someone had a finance, legal background, it's great. But if they just want to make Reading a better place and provide open space. As we all know, it's getting crowded a bit. They're certainly welcome to contact us via that email on our website. And last slide. This is our last slide. You can kick me off. So I mentioned the parking area at Route 28. It's really difficult. The snowplows do a turnaround there. They really dig it up. And I know we need the roads plowed, but they use our land to turn around. I talked to Fidel. I don't think there's an easy solution. This site also has the potential for a platform. And down the Cape, they actually provide a platform in different areas, and artists actually go and paint. And it would be a really beautiful scene to paint. So I think it would be a nice addition. And then one other thing would be possibly linking the Land Trust website to the town website, if that can be done. That's my pitch, and I want to thank you for letting me come tonight.
Thanks, Bob. Any questions, board members?
Pickleball courts? No.
Karen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Bob.
thank you.
Fabulous pictures. And I'll just thank you publicly. You know, I know your official title is treasurer, but you're the public relations arm of this group. And I thank you for the tours you've given me of the past. I think Sledge Woods is the one that's up off of Franklin? Is that the one that's up
Yeah.
of Franklin? Okay, so I'm up there a lot. It's nice. And I also appreciate the transparency of this organization. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, they can easily find out who the board members are. And we definitely encourage folks to consider donations to Rolt. And thank you to your entire board for being the stewards of these properties.
Thank you. And if anybody else wanted a tour, I'm happy to arrange that, so just let me know.
Before you step away, just a quick question. Do you work at all with conservation and trails, or I know you're separate groups,
Yeah,
but
we do. In fact, Kim just asked me if there's any places we want trails, and that's something the board has to talk around, because it's not a trivial endeavor. It's hundreds of man hours. It can be thousands of dollars of planking and whatnot, so. But Kim just asked me. In conservation, we hope to go to a conservation meeting. Chuck and I have met a few times with some other board members, and we do hope to go to a meeting soon rather than later and talk about potential land that one of us can get. I know there's some out by Dean Road that he's interested in, but.
I just want to kind of make sure that we're having
Yeah,
discussions.
we're definitely trying to do that.
Yeah,
Definitely want to work together.
Thanks, Carl.
A quick question, thank you. So I guess as far as the trust goes, your donations, correct, that you accept, is that the only source? Is there any grants from the state or federal? Or how are you?
We actually could get grants, but we just didn't act on it. And there is grant money, I know. Mark Wetzel in town is very good at getting grant money. And I was able to get a grant, but we didn't use it. So it's also something we can do, yes.
So typically, it's in the can. How many thousands of dollars do you try to keep funded or in reserve to help you do any projects?
We really don't have a set figure, to be honest. It's just whatever we have. Usually years ago, we had $20-something thousand, but, and we have no employees, we have no office, we just,
Right.
so we have minimal expenses, so. So we're in a better position now because we've gotten some donations.
Okay.
So that's why I mentioned that we are in a position to possibly negotiate a purchase of land if somebody had something suitable. Obviously, free is good, but that's, if people need money to retire, then that's fine too, so,
Thank you.
okay. Thanks
Super.
again.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Next, discussion on parking violation fees and potential changes. Lieutenant Jones, good evening.
Hello, how is everyone?
Great.
All right, so the police department, looking at the fines for surrounding towns. And what we found is that we were a little bit behind with everybody else. So we looked to increase the three groups of fines. The first is Group A, which is no parking, overtime parking, wrong way, blocking driveway, blocking private road. Group B is fire lane and fire hydrant violations. And Group C is the illegal parking in handicap spaces. So comparing to other towns, we figured the first group, an increase of to $25 from $20, which it currently is. The second group would be $50 increased to $100. And for the illegal parking in handicap spaces would be increased from $100 to $300. I think in the package shows the different towns that we looked at, all the surrounding towns, and then a few others as well. Beverly, Concord, Melrose, Andover. So comparable size to Reading.
Thank you.
Do you have a handle on how many tickets we end up writing nowadays? Ideally by category, but.
So we added the park enforcement officer last year, so he probably started on his own, swing of things after training and everything in about May. So in roughly 7 months, he accounted for 60% of the parking tickets that the police department gave out. In total violations last year was 1,700. The majority of those are the overtime parking violations, so the 32-hour or 3-hour spots, that's on our fine, on our citations. So all those categories combined make the highest count. And then behind that would be the no permit, so that's the people who park at the depot without the
Employee.
resident sticker parking at the depot.
And so it looks like the suggested increases are fairly consistent with other communities. The handicap one, consistent with some, a little bit higher than some others, but the $25 number was fairly consistent with our neighbors.
Correct. Everybody fell in between $15 and $25 for their general parking fines.
So we had talked a little bit about the need maybe of even going higher, and I know the feedback was there may be another way to tackle that.
Yes, so with the overtime parking, we've seen if, for example, someone comes out and they see they already got a ticket, they'll just leave their car there. Like, I already got a ticket, they can't ticket me again, but they'll be there for an extra 2 hours, 3 hours, the whole day. So if it's in a 2-hour spot, it's not necessarily 2 hours later that they automatically get a ticket, but if another officer goes by and starts another 2-hour clock on it, then they could issue a ticket again.
So, do we know legally, is that okay?
There is nothing in the law that restricts it from happening, so we'll say it that way. What town council said is that it should be advertised. We should make it clear that and it should be a vote of the select board making it clear that what the policy is. But she said that there's other places that have it in place, and I think she found one example where it was after so many hours, after 4 hours, after 6 hours, but there's nothing in the law that prevents multiple tickets from being issued in a 24-hour period, for example.
Good. Thanks. Board members, questions? Kyle?
To that effect, would we have to redo all the signs? Like, as far as notice, wouldn't it have to be on the sign? 2-hour limit, and that if it's just a policy or on the back end, they're not gonna know, like, what's
Yeah.
liability if we don't do new signs?
Yeah,
her recommendation was that it be adopted essentially, and if someone receives 2 tickets and they try to fight it, for example, or they try to appeal it, then we can point to that policy. But we don't have an obligation to change all the signage all of a sudden, because it's going to vary, right? I mean, like if the officer is around, if you know, if it's not guaranteed.
Right, we want to deter people from doing that, but, you know, I think you're aware of the example of that Nissan that was parking all day on Main Street. It was somebody visiting or it was a resident, and they were all day on different parts of Main Street. And, you know, if it's not posted on a sign, say you're going to Boston, you know, there's you know, times for trash, you know, plowing, you know, street cleaning, I'm sorry, there's certain times of the week or the month you can't, limited hours for street cleaning. So, you know, we don't have that. We do our sweeping, you know, very early on a Friday and leaf blowing on a Friday where there's hardly any cars on Main Street. But I guess for me, if we're going to adopt that, which I like, I would want to see some of the signs changed just as a proper notice to the people so they know, and that's another deterrent. And so, yeah, so they get your tickets in one day, all right, they learn about the policy, but I don't know, this is how, I mean, I want to control manage downtown parking more than anyone. So any way we can help the people who, you know, do it repeatedly, they should pay the penalty, but for people who it's an accident or they just went over by 15 minutes, that's a different scenario. But I don't know, I just think would put us in a better position if we have it in writing on the signs. Even if it's small, it's there.
Maybe even on the tickets.
I think it has to be on the ticket. Yeah, on the second ticket. Yeah, any ticket has to be on there as a violation, right? But
Maybe we can ask for a little bit more clarification also in terms of
We'll do that right
how
now.
other people do it.
Absolutely.
Maybe that'll help us too. Other comments? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. I think the way to alleviate that is just if they get the second ticket and they appeal it, then the first one is free or whatever scenario you can, and then they know for the future that they're not going to get a waiver on the next one kind of thing. And did you say 1,700 was written last year or 17,000?
1,700, 1,747.
Because that seems ridiculously low. The town's not getting rich off these violations. It's just basically just getting people to move so people have time to park, to go to all the businesses. And people are still parking in handicap spots. Like, people are really getting tickets for parking in handicap spots?
So on top of this 1747, we also had 60 logged calls for parking complaints in the downtown area. So that's at least one a week that someone's calling up complaining. So those are anything from fire lane to handicap spaces, delivery trucks blocking access. So yeah, every parking situation you can imagine happens in downtown.
Because that's just wild to me. It's like the only thing I would now, I'll park wherever. I'll drive up on, curb onto someone's lawn. I don't care, but I will never park in a handicap spot. And it's just wild to hear that people would actually still do this. It's just crazy to me. And I worked in Cambridge for years, so, but no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Jackie?
No, thank you. It's helpful to see kind of a broad cross-section of our other communities, like, more dense places like Concord and Melrose, but also the Wilmingtons of the world. I support that increased structure, but I do think we should get some more detail on the best verbiage on signs and tickets for repeat offenders.
Okay.
Yeah, you have me thinking, occasionally I've gotten tickets and I'm pretty sure I've never seen like little fine, it could be on the back of the ticket, I'm not reading it that closely, but there's no fine print on the sign saying, oh, by the way, you're gonna get multiple tickets. It's just like, and usually it's not usually an issue here in Reading. There's plenty of parking, but downtown, I'm looking at is it even, odd day, is it snow plowing, is it, what day is it? And there's never like extra little verbiage that says, oh, by the way, if we give you one ticket, we're gonna give you another one, so I guess we should just confirm, like,
Yeah, doesn't sound like it's required, but let's get some more. Because I know one of the reasons that the board expressed some concern was because once the parking kiosks are set up and the fee is set up for parking for a long period of time, the day, whatever, we didn't want it to be kind of equal in cost to pay the kiosk as to just not pay it and see how many times I get ticketed.
Right.
Which almost sounds like it might be, cheaper. So it sounds like the way you're addressing this is by saying, so first of all, A, it's $25, and B, there's a chance you're gonna get nicked another time.
Right.
Or maybe even more than another time.
Right, so the people who are spending a full day there are getting whacked twice. So I mean, I guess it can be tackled by that option, or just increase it from $20 instead of $25 to $30, like you had suggested, or how much the both decides.
Yeah, so maybe let's see what the issues are surrounding multiple tickets. And for me personally, I think that would impact my thinking on that. I'm comfortable with multiple tickets. But if we can't enforce that or it's too hard, then maybe we should raise the rate a little bit higher than $25, in my opinion.
And under the mass law, the board can increase it up to $50.
Yeah, and to be clear, the point of this is to say to people, hey, we love you coming into town and parking, just obey the parking regulations. Don't leave your car there all day. That's not allowing other people to shop. It's not supporting our businesses. And if you're caught doing it, you're gonna pay the price.
Right.
Any other? Chris, sorry.
I know we can't flush this out tonight, but, in Boston in particular, because of the tightness of the streets and the activity, there's commercial-only parking, commercial plates. Commercial, it can be a passenger vehicle, but it has commercial plates and it has to have lettering on it. And we know we've had a lot of problems with contractors when they're on a job site, parking, all day long, take the ticket, who cares?
Right.
I don't know if it's been discussed, previous to me joining the board, but has there been any discussion about commercial-only parking? Designated commercial-only, like for the delivery drivers, and again, I don't want contractors parking anywhere on a Haven Street, Main Street, that will take up spots from employees and residents and customers. But has that ever been discussed?
I think the issue is that
Loading zone slash commercial
right, I
zone?
think that it's larger trucks. Thinking mostly the rear of the CVS lot, it'd be like a small size box truck, so they really have no place to go, so they just stop and block in 4 cars at a time, make a quick delivery, and then
I'm talking about the contractors, like the electricians and the plumbers who are on a job site
right.
all day long and park anywhere and just don't care. Because their contractor will, their GC or wherever will pay the ticket, or, I don't know, I mean, it's been a problem. I know we have less projects going on now, but that was a major problem over the past 5 to 7 years with all these big buildings being built, with contractors wreaking havoc on parking for employees and for customers. I know we got a ton of complaints. I mean, so I know that's tough to do, but I just wanted to.
Right. During the design review team meetings with different contractors for different sites, we come up with suggestions for where they
Right.
for where they park, especially the ones that were on Main Street. It was in some of the agreements that they'd have shuttles for their employees. That way they could weren't taking up all the spaces. And then parking further away from the square, up on the northern part of Sanborn for the new project on Woburn Street right now, so that they're not taking all the spaces in the back of the CBS lot on Woburn Street.
Right, that's a good example, right.
Because the other suggestion that they had is being, buying employee passes, but they're not employees of the downtown area, they're there for 4 to 6 months tops for a project. So we felt that didn't fall in line with the spirit of the employee parking passes.
So it sounds like on a project by project basis, can negotiate out a place where they should park.
Right.
And then if they choose not to and take up our downtown spots, we're going to be sending them a slip.
And hopefully lots of them, 'cause, oh, boss is gonna pay us to stay here, so, okay, good, more, I mean. Great.
Anything else on this topic?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, with the CVS slot being 4 hours, in order for them to get dinged for the 2 after that, they're gonna be there at like 6.5 hours later kind of scenario. So it's kind of cutting it close, I guess. It's not like they can ticket them first thing in the morning because they have the 4 hours. So
Right, with the parking restriction
noon,
times.
and unless like the parking guy's there at 12:01,
Right.
it just doesn't seem as if this is gonna end up solving it over there. I'd be more inclined to be given people that are doing that, the, $50 tickets, et cetera, but not for residents, it's hard, you can't discriminate like that though, you know what I mean? So I don't even know how increasing it from 20 to 30 would really matter, because they're gonna take the ticket at 30, they're gonna take it at $60. I mean, there's no real big difference. It's $60 to a resident that, that's the big problem, but
So
see what happens.
this ideally fits in with the whole plan, which is to set up the designated employee spots and things anyway. So this, hopefully what we're starting to say is we're ratcheting things up a little bit here. And please don't park here. We're making it easy for you to have other spots. But if you feel you have to be here, it's gonna cost you more money. And to your point, I guess we watch and see what happens.
Yeah, we can always revisit.
Anything else? Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Thank you much.
We are past 8 o'clock. Awesome. And I ask you to read the hearing for, oh, I'm
Do we need
sorry.
a motion for that, for the?
No, it was just discussion tonight only.
Oh, okay.
So we'll come back next meeting and actually vote it. And we'll have the information back from town council as well, so that we can use that as part of our decision.
Okay.
But it could happen.
Okay, hearing for a change of manager at Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza, please.
Okey-dokey.
To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, please take notice that the Select Board of the town of Reading will hold a public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 7 PM in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. We're also available remotely on Zoom to act on a change of manager application for an annual all-alcohol restaurant liquor license at Anthony's Cold Fired Pizza, located at 48 Walkersburg Drive, Reading, Mass. Copy of the proposed documents regarding this topic will be in the Select Board packet or on the website at www.readingma.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing in person or remotely via Zoom, or may submit their comments in writing or by email prior to 6 PM on February 21st, 2023 to townmanager@ci.reading.ma.us by order of Fidel Maltese, Town Manager.
Thank you, sir. So this is just a request for change of manager, and I see Mr. Karastinos is on the line in the background over there. Can we ask you, Mr. Karastinos, just to introduce yourself to us? You are muted at the moment, though.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm Greg Karastinos. I just took over Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza as the general manager in January. I actually grew up in the town of Reading and graduated from Reading High School as well. And been traveling all day, just pulled over so I could get on this call. I'm in Allentown, Pennsylvania right now for our general manager's meeting. So this is who I am. Hello.
Hello, thanks for the introduction. Are there members of the public that would like to speak on this topic? No one in the room? Anyone online, Caitlin, that would like to speak?
Nope, no one, just staff online.
All right, we'll just wait. Oh, so only staff online. Okay, great. Why don't we then have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the hearing regarding the change of manager request for Anthony's Cold Fired Pizza.
There a second?
Second.
Thank you. It was a fight between Karen and Jackie on that one. Awesome. Any Okay, so let's take a vote on that first. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0. The public hearing is closed on that. So board members, any questions or comments on this request for change of manager?
Leave it to you, Mark.
Awesome. So the board will vote in a moment. Welcome back, I guess is the right way to put it. Didn't realize that you were a son of Reading. So one of the things that obviously very important to us as a community and as a board is just in making sure that the liquor licenses are enforced appropriately through your staff and folks that are in the building. And so when we do a change of license, when we do renewals of license, I personally like to kind of just reinforce this to everybody, that it's important to us. Oh, a little background, I hear it. One of the perils of being on the road. So,
Sorry.
no worries. We just ask that you keep that in mind and appreciate it. It's a high priority for this board and for the community.
No, absolutely. I take my job. I've been doing this for 20 years. I take it very seriously and enforcing all policies and procedures, and most importantly, alcohol. Like I said, I grew up in that town, but any town I work in, I take care of our community and the guests and make sure my staff is educated and responsible. And if they're not, then we have different conversations to ensure that we are 100% being responsible to our community.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments, members? All right. We have a motion to approve the change.
Move to approve the change of manager request for an annual all alcohol restaurant license for Anthony's Cold Fire Pizza at 48 Walker's Brook Drive.
I'm sorry, let's start with saying change of manager. I'm sorry, I zoned out for a second.
Yes.
It did. Thank you.
Move to
Great. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? None appearing. Let's take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0. Congratulations and thank you very much. Welcome back.
Okay, thank you, folks. I appreciate it. And the rest of you guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you
you
too.
as well.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, our second hearing, please, related to the budget.
Deja vu.
Almost.
To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, please take notice that the Select Board of the town of Reading will hold a public hearing on February 21st, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. Or also available remotely on Zoom to solicit public input on the town manager's recommended budget for FY 2024. Copy of the proposed documents regarding this topic will be in the Select Board packet on the website at www.readingma.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing in person or remotely via Zoom, or may submit their comments in writing or by email prior to 6 p.m. on February 21st, 2023 to townmanager@ci.reading.ma.us by order of Fidel Maltese, Town Manager.
Thank you, Chris. So the public hearing is open. I just wanted to say thank you to Fidel for putting together this very all-encompassing and, I thought, clear document. So I'm hoping everyone finds it very helpful. So public hearing, are there folks that would like to comment specifically on this topic?
I think I already did during public comment.
Any other members in the room that would like to speak? Anyone online, Caitlin, that would like to speak?
Not seeing anyone.
Okay. All right. So why don't we close the public hearing then?
Move to close the hearing regarding the town manager's recommended budget for FY '24.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Karen second. Any other discussion? All set? Okay, let's, all those in favor of the motion to close the hearing, raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0. Public hearing part is closed. Board members, questions, comments on the budget document? Fidel?
Sorry, if you don't mind, I could go through 156 pages of this document with you tonight if you'd like, but I figured we just start with Ms. Nancy's comments. So this is something that basically came up early on in the budget process, actually, in conversations with our public health director and myself. The public health section is in page 103 and 104 of your packet. But I guess I'll just say that so our health director, Ade, he started, I want to say 3 months before me, maybe, or 2 months before me, in November of 2021. So he, I believe that he's hit the ground running, and while I haven't been here prior, I would say that the work that the department is doing right now is tremendous. They're doing a lot of more core public health needs, I'll say. So they hosted a vaccine clinics for all employees, and they continue doing that for staff. They held a vision clinic for employees of the town. They right now is Heart Awareness Month, and on the Chronicle, you might have seen last week on Thursday that their work was highlighted. I think they are running on all cylinders. We are finally fully staffed right now. We had a town meeting in the FY23 budget funded a support staff position, and it took us a year to find the right person. So and obviously I think our public health nurse left, I think, a month into my tenure here in Reading, and it took us probably 7 months to find her replacement. So this is the suggestion to not fund the part-time health nurse was not one that was made out of a desire for budget. It was one that was made out of a strategic move from the health director and myself. He's presented this to the public health. I'm sorry, to the Board of Health, and I've talked to the Board of Health chair about this as well. The funding for the part-time health nurse was really related to COVID-19 response. And while I wasn't here, it's my understanding that this employee was mostly doing COVID-19 follow-up, more specifically contact tracing. So when someone was infected, she had to reach out to them and do contact tracing, and the majority of the work kind of fell on that. This person was someone who had a full-time job as a nurse, and it wasn't a match with regards to our needs, and she left. I want to say probably in the summer, and it's a matter of not filling that position again. What I told the Board of Health chair is that the select board previously allocated $250,000 from ARPA funds, and we have said that we I don't think we're ready to turn those funds yet, right? Because we don't know where the pandemic is going. So if we are caught in a pinch, our approach would be to come to the select board and request to add basically to bridge fund this position again in through ARPA funds. But again, I just wanted to reiterate that this was a strategic decision as a department, and it in no way was it meant to underfund, which I think in many ways, as you see in the budget, the public health department has been funded at a tremendous level in the last 2 years compared to FY21, and probably more if you compare it to 2020. So I'll stop there and answer any questions.
I think there was also a question on the needs assessment survey and funding for that, is that an issue, and is it a substantial amount of money that we're talking about here?
So I believe the amount that came back from the RFPs is $65,000. I think that's right, or maybe it's 56. I don't recall at the moment. But that is being funded from the public health allotment of ARPA funds. From the select board, and we the Board of Health argued that it was in line with the original vote of the select board to fund public health needs in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I don't believe there's any issues with funding the work, and we are having actually a kickoff meeting on Thursday to start the planning work on that.
Karen?
Quick question. So can you give us, I don't think the ARPA funds are all accounted for in the budget. Can you give us an idea of what is going to be left at the start of the fiscal year, or what you expect to be there
Yeah,
in that allocation?
so sure. Our plan is Sharon is coming before you, I believe on the second meeting in March, so March 21st, to give her quarterly update on her quarterly update from the town accountant. Last time I looked, even once we removed the funding for the RFP, we had $108,000 in the public health funding from ARPA. $108,000, which would be more than enough to cover a part-time nurse.
Thanks.
Just to clarify for a second, so the 108 would be after funding this needs survey?
That is correct.
Okay.
I'll verify those numbers, but yes, that is correct.
Thanks. Jackie?
And just a question on the line items for the health department. Looks like for FY '24, there's still 74,000 and change for a health nurse. So are you saying that we still have a part-time health nurse, but the additional part-time nurse left last year?
Sorry, yeah, I should clarify that. We have a full-time nurse.
Right.
Her name is Mallory. She's fantastic. I mean, she's a huge asset to us, and has been doing great. We also had funding for an additional part-time nurse on top of that. So,
Okay.
yes,
So it's the additional part-time nurse who is now
not covered in this budget.
not covered, okay.
That's correct. Is the additional part-time nurse.
Okay.
Other questions, comments on this topic or others? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. So when the nurse left in July of last year, or whenever it was back then, did the position get re-advertised, or you looked for 6 months or something and nobody applied, or?
Yeah, we at that point were looking for a full-time nurse also, right? So we were at one point there it was pretty bare bones. I want to say that the full-time nurse left, and I'm working off from memory here, but it's probably in February or March of 2022, and Mallory I believe was hired in early fall. So we had a time there where it was really hard to hire anybody.
In a day, is the digitizing of all the health records and all that got approved, right?
That's correct.
Is that
$25,000.
Is there any progress on that, or?
Yeah, sure. There is. I mean, I think his approach is to scan all existing records. If you go back to his area, he's got years of records. He's scanning those in essentially, and it's not him. It's a third-party vendor that comes in, picks up the files and scans them in. And the intent is to eventually go to all digital, but it's going to take us a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the decrease, just seeing with the state not requiring reporting of COVID numbers anymore or any of that, then, I mean, I'm not sure why we would be, it seems like that was, she was somewhat doing that before as well. So, I'm good.
Okay, so anything on other aspects inside this budget? Phil, can I ask you to take a look at, under capital? It's page 140, it's the capital improvement plan, 140 of the budget book. So I'm not sure what that is in our packets.
Yeah, so 140, I'm sorry. 140.
It's the first page of the capital improvement plan.
So it might be your packet of 162 on your packet, where it says introduction. Is that the one you're thinking about?
No, I'm actually in Appendix A.
Okay.
73.
Yeah, sorry, my page numbers aren't popping for some reason.
So before we do that, I just want to highlight that prior to Appendix A, you'll see that there's a spreadsheet, so it's page 162, 164, 165 of the book of your packet, and it's essentially there is now a sheet on every project on the capital plan. So it shows a picture of what we're buying, a description of what we're buying, and how it's being funded. But I believe that Appendix A starts on page 174 of the packet. And it is the capital plan.
Can you go through the color coding just for a second? What does green mean?
Yeah, so green is the changes. So green are things that Sharon has changed.
Okay, so as I look at, for example, additional temporary funding, so I
That is
see
a
in
change.
24, that has changed, right?
That is a change as part of this budget
Got it.
compared to the last plan.
Okay,
So anything in green is a change with this plan. That's changed from the previous plan, adopted in November.
got it. And then in the bottom of that same sheet where it says capital projects identified but no proposed funding, the line through it is just indicating exactly that there's no proposed funding.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It has been historically what we have to use as a placeholder or a conversation item.
Okay, and then some of them, you may see them later in the plan as potentials, right? But they're not yet funded.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. So one of the reasons why I think developing a vision and plan will be helpful for us is that as we look at these sheets in the back and we look at the projects not listed or not prioritized, to kind of have literally a vision, something to kind of look up to see, okay, are these things pointing in that direction? And help us to do some prioritizing in some cases and to make sure we're on plan. So I'll bring that up later, but I just wanted to note that's, I think, one of the real benefits of doing that high level plan.
Yeah, and just to highlight to the board that what's before you is a draft. We're still making some adjustments, some changes, not to the numbers, but to the presentation. We will deliver the final package to FinCom on Tuesday, on March 28th, and FinCom has their first meeting the following day, so on the March 1st, and there will be basically FinCom meetings the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd if needed, to review the budget and answer questions. And in these meetings, we go page by page over 3 nights in a lot of detail with
Those are actually going to be hearings, right? Public hearings? Or are any of them going to be a public hearing?
No, I don't know.
Just meetings. The public hearing is what
Oh,
we just
would be
did,
their
literally.
last. So FinCom,
Just public meetings, not a hearing per se.
Yeah, so we talked about FinCom, according to their manual, should be holding a hearing where the public can weigh in. I understand that we're having one tonight, but we are the select board. Does that,
take the place of that recommended budget hearing.
So I think for this year, that's, I think what we had intended.
Okay.
Whether or not that's something we should be doing in the future is a great question to talk about. I know that members of FinCom had some questions about that and felt that as a public hearing, it might be better done at the select board. That's why we kind of accommodated it
So
this
then we
year.
should be doing it at the end of the process.
So I'll be in Fidel's shoes for a second. I think he's at the end of the process. Right, and this is now, basically, this is the recommended budget moving
Got it.
forward to
Understood.
FinCom. And then FinCom has to adopt it or make any other recommended changes, and then it becomes their budget at that
So
point.
that's what I mean, it's not the end of the process.
Right, it's the
I
end of,
understand that you're done and this is what you want, and then, so I think that the goal of the recommendations in the Finance Committee handbook are that the public really be, and especially town meeting members, really be engaged in the budget discussions when the Finance Committee is going through them. So, yeah, and they specifically mentioned a budget hearing, but
so I think we should talk about that. Let's figure out what's the right approach to this. How do we do it? And it does become a budget, I guess. The pro and the con, from my perspective, it's up to town meeting whether or not to accept the recommendations of changes. Where does the public have input? I guess at all stages, truthfully, but there's one more stage after us, right, which is FinCom.
so I think, so my takeaway was that if we were, as a hearing, it just implies more publication, more outreach, that we would enable town meeting members to feel more engaged in the process and better prepared for town meeting. So, we did have one member of the public come tonight, and we don't know who's waiting at home, so that's, that's great.
Yeah, well, the goal obviously is to be as transparent as possible and ideally to help town meeting members in particular be as prepared as possible. So that
Yes,
they're ready
yeah.
for presentations or ideally they know it even before we get to town meeting.
So certainly the meetings are publicized, they're televised, they're recorded.
Yeah, and we're planning to do another Town Meeting 101. We're gonna do a town finance 101 as well. The intent is that to educate. We are going to do recordings like as we did for the last two, where we basically pre-record our presentations. I will reach out to Bob Holmes also to run some articles on the content, and we're definitely going to try our best to explain at a town meeting, because it just makes everything go easier.
Maybe we could have kind of a chair, vice chair of the two committees chat a little bit over the course of the next few weeks.
Sure.
Just at least start a discussion about it.
Sure.
Anything else, folks? All good?
I like the new look in general. Appreciate the introduction. Graphics are great. I think it resonates with people that are coming to town meeting after a long day at the office and maybe just opening, or, at home when they're prepping for town meeting. So I think these are good usability and visual additions and changes to the budget. So I appreciate that.
And for folks that want to see how we spend $115 million,
It's right there.
that's what the book is. Awesome.
Oh, can I just say the organizational chart? Did you see the voters? Did everyone at home see that the top of the organizational chart is the voters? It's exactly where they belong.
All right, let's roll. Update from Reading Climate Advisory Committee. David.
Evening, David Zeke, Climate Advisory Committee. Two of my committee members are here, Jenna Filiowski and Ray Porter, so we have and we'll call the Climate Advisory Committee to order.
You're posted, yes?
It is posted, yes.
Thank you.
You have slides for this.
Ms. Kayla, would you mind putting up the slides? Thank you.
So this is an update of activities in 2022. These are the things that didn't rise to the level of hysteria, and that we managed to just do, but I wanted you to know about them. And so next slide, please. This is the Climate Advisory Committee. We have our 5 voting members. We have 3 vacancies for associate members. Actually, we've usually had 1 or 2 associate members, and they're handy, because even we do a lot of things that don't require voting, and they're extra hands. All right, next slide. This is kind of the way it breaks down. So there are 2 dimensions to what the Climate Advisory Committee does. There's an education outreach side that is interfacing with the community or everybody, and then there's the policy planning side, which is really more on the government side and town meeting and things like that. And so I'm gonna talk about what we've done in 2022. In these two areas. Next slide. So we'll talk about the education outreach activities. We'll talk about policy and planning activities, and then I've added another section on some updates about Massachusetts. This is not what we've done, but there are several things that are going on at the state level, and I'm not going to go into them in any kind of depth at all. I just want probably each of these other topics is worth a discussion of its own. But if we did it tonight, it would be like 45 minutes for each one. So, just I want you to know that they are there. Next slide, please.
David, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. We do need to, so we closed the hearing. Is there what is that motion
This
exactly?
is to close the warrant.
Which is our next item, right? Yeah, so sorry, that's after climate advisory.
I'm just making sure.
I wasn't paying attention.
Sorry, we're good.
Back to back.
Thanks for the wake up
That's why I
call.
checked with you, Mark, and you agreed with me, so that's on you.
I'm sorry, David.
All right, no problem. All right, so this is some of the activities that we do. When we talk about education and outreach, a lot of it is participating in various activities around town that are not might be ours, might be sponsored by us, but are not necessarily. And these are some of the examples where we've participated in the Town Forest Celebration and Friends and Family Day, and our bicycle recycling giveaway program, and RMLD Open House, New Residents Open House. Also, Gina Snyder, who used to be on the committee but is actually not on the committee now, nevertheless still occasionally attends, and she continues to write these Green Sense articles that do get published in the newspapers, but and fair number of them, at least like 1 out of 3 of her articles gets published, and I don't really know, I don't know where she comes up with the material, but she is an incredible writer for as much as she writes about. So I just wanted to mention that. So all those activities, we usually will have like a booth, a table or something like that. For the town forest, we were featuring different kinds of soil, how you make soil to if you want your plants to actually grow. At the RMLD Open House and the Friends and Family Day, we were talking about heat pumps and how they work. And in all cases, our goal is to have something that's interesting for children, because if the children will stop and do something, then the parents will stop and talk while the kids are there. So it's not deep, it's not heavy, but it's an engagement. So it's an important activity for us. Next slide. This bicycle giveaway, I hope you're familiar with this. This is one of the best programs. It's really sponsored by Reading Cares, who set this up, where we collect bicycles and then reallocate them to those who want them. It's something on the order of 100 bicycles, plus or minus 20, but depending on the year. But kids come and they're dropping off a bicycle that they've just outgrown, picking up one that's the next size up, and we turn over all those small bicycles. But we also have a goodly number of adult bikes, dirt bikes, racing bikes, things like that. So it's been an incredible program, I think. Let's see, next slide. This is just, we ran a little survey at the Town Forest Celebration, and this is just dot voting. Here are some of the things that we're thinking about in Reading. What do you think? Put your dot on the chart if you think this is an important thing. This is absolutely not a statistically interesting survey. This is sorted by people who want to show up for the Town Forest celebration and then take the time out to vote at our booth. But it was interesting in a couple of areas. If you just look at all of the things that came up, it's very clear that Reading residents support things that support Reading. If it's about Reading, they're interested. If it's about a state law or a federal policy, no thank you. They're just really interested in things that are very focused on us. And some of them, even at that, you'll notice that the one that got the most votes here, if I can read this, is the Energy Stretch Code. I mean, how many people know about the Energy Stretch Code? That's got the most votes of all. And then, so you can see what some of these interesting ones are. One that I'd like to put a pin in and come back to in a moment is the one about the hosting the farmers market. We'll talk about that in a minute, but that one actually got quite a few votes. So if I can read these, I think they're all worth mentioning. Promoting use of electric vehicles, promoting alternative transportation forms like walking and bicycling, the farmers market, the community garden, and developing an emergency plan for extreme conditions like weather conditions, climate conditions, and which the town is doing. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So next slide. So now we'll switch over to the policy and planning discussion. As we've gone on, so the Climate Advisory Committee has been in business since 2006. It's and as we've gone on, we're migrating from things that have been able to control to things that really involve the town. Involve money, involve town staff, involve doing things on a scale that gets way beyond a handful of volunteers meeting in the evening. So this has been one of our issues. The next slide. Yeah, thank you. This is a couple of years ago we presented to you this outline of our sustainability plan, and we made a lot of progress. So most of those with the little green dots with the arrow in them show things where we have made considerable progress. We maybe we're not there yet, but we've made a lot of progress in that area. Becoming a green community, for example, we've done a lot. We're not there. We're still working on it, but we made a lot of progress. Adopting clean energy and energy efficiency in our buildings is something that we've done quite a bit on. That's actually an area that is currently being looked at also in the town's net zero plan, which is just getting kicked off. So that's become a big deal. Adopting the stretch energy code, I guess done. We had to do that as one of the items for the green communities. The transportation, encouraging electric vehicles and charging stations. We've done both of that, and we've done quite a bit we'll talk about in a moment about the charging stations and what we wanted to accomplish there. And also providing more walking and bicycling options. There again, the town is launching a plan for walking and bicycling options. And so I should probably take this time then to comment on what Mr. McNichol has done in his role of leading these kind of things. He's leading most of these kind of planning efforts, and he's, as you know, has been promoted to community director of community development, right? Mm-hmm. So, and this is an area that he's keenly interested in, and I think he's highly effective. So I wanted to just note that. So. Now, back on the food item, we established a community garden. I'll talk about that. What we have not done anything on is the farmers market. We had a conversation with Carlo one day about the farmers market and how we might go about it, having one in Reading, given that there are several in neighboring communities, and we definitely agree with that. We thought at the time that maybe this was going to be a project of the bid. I don't know if it is or not, or, you know, if the bid is going to pick this up. If not, then it's probably something we want to come back and revisit about how we might go forward on our own. Then the health, incorporating climate vulnerabilities in emergency plans and adapting community facilities. Those are both subjects of the MVP hazard mitigation plan, which is already launched and is going to the, I think through June. So all of these things are getting addressed one way or another. Next slide. In 2022, we did a survey of home heating and cooling systems. Asking people what is your source of heating and cooling in your home? And this went out, and you probably got one in your town census. This was sent out with the town census. We got back just over 4,000 responses out of some 12,000 that were sent out. And you can kind of read through the details, but half the homes in Reading are heated with oil. Almost that many homes are heated with natural gas. Some of the things that we want to promote, like heat pumps, are really in small numbers, like 3%. You can see on that chart. But also half the homes have central air conditioning. So any home that has central air conditioning is set up for central heat pump. You know, you use the same, or if you have gas forced air, you have the ducting infrastructure, and this is just if you want to use a central system. You can also do the mini splits and hang them on the walls and do it room by room. But there are various options. So I think that while we have little penetration, if you will, of heat pumps in Reading, we have a lot of homes that could immediately adopt it. We have now we've decided we're doing this survey again this year for 2023. Again, went out again with census. We've gotten back almost 3,000 of these surveys so far, and we've counted about 1,000 of them. And so, you know, we don't have the numbers exactly, but all the heat pump categories are up considerably. So let's see. So like heat pumps as a primary source in your home, it's now sitting at 5.5%, and that's up 2.5% from what it was just a year ago. Part of the reason for doing a survey this year was to see if there was actually any motion at all on these kind of issues. Cooling was also up. Heat pumps as a central source is up to now 10%. Now, this is on this partial sample, you know. Similarly, the interest in, am I interested in converting to a heat pump for either heating or cooling? Heating is up now to 6.1%, which is up 2.6% from last year. So, you know, doubling. And cooling is also up. It's up, and the interest is at 7.4%. So these are. This shows quite a bit of motion, I think, in the community for something that's has not got as much. Well, it hasn't got the full court press that we intended to for heat pumps. You might also have seen the articles in the Globe or the Washington Post that talked about the test that our little cold snap gave us in terms of how heat pumps work, and they came out very well with a -8 degrees, -10 degree wind, temperature. They were doing fine without the auxiliary electric or gas or whatever backup. Next one. Next slide. As we were talking about EV chargers, when we were talking to RMLD, they had a program where they were working with Reading businesses to install EV chargers for their employees. So they would have like EV chargers in the parking lot. And our position was that we supported that course, but we wanted to see EV chargers in the public areas. We wanted people to see that there are EV chargers that help them convince them that owning an electric vehicle would be a thing that they could do and that they could be able to charge their car and so forth. So we're very happy to see the program that we're working on now to put EV chargers in town. Next slide. Community garden. Community garden is just kind of off to the races. I mean, it was a very successful first year. It started with a $10,000 state grant. We have 18 beds out there, and we're now working on the not me, not
You're
we.
supervising.
Yeah, my boss is working on this, and so we got a $40,000 grant, the Accelerating Climate Resilience grant from MAPC. The Rotary Club has donated $6,000, which is almost entirely dedicated to the food bank. And there'll be more of the garden dedicated to the food bank, and they are sort of working on extending the garden up the hill. This is the Matera cabin, working on up the hill. Going to be a beehive up there. It's going to be some kind of a structure up there. And so anyway, it's been a very big success. Got a lot of attention. Got all the important people in the picture there. So okay, next slide. The polystyrene bylaw. We spent a lot of the year working on this polystyrene bylaw, and of course it passed in a town meeting in November, really with landslide numbers. Now we are. What I understand from Laura is that the Attorney General has committed to respond by March 4th. Then there's like a 2-week period where it has to be publicized, and then it becomes posted, and our 1-year implementation period starts. We're working with the Department of Health. The board. We went to the Board of Health and to talk about what we want to do about the implementation. They asked us to coordinate with Ade, and we'll be working with him on what we want to do. The main thrust is going to be educating health inspectors so that as they go about their business of inspecting the various businesses, this will be another item. We have to provide them some materials that they can hand out, and also be sure that they know what they're looking for. And I think our plan is also in September. Ade's going to send a message out to these. There's about 156 businesses that the Board of Health deals with, out of the 300 in Reading, and tell them what, just kind of remind them, here it comes, are you ready, do you need help, and ask if you want public forums or any of those kind of support things. So depending on how they respond, that will also determine what else we do. Okay, so next slide. So this is where we're going. So we got the repeat of the heating and cooling survey, supporting major plans that are now going on in Reading for the net zero planning, the hazard mitigation planning, of course, implementing the bylaw, and achieving, I hope, designation as a green community. Like to get that one behind us too, and start raking in some of that money, right? Then our focus is really on sustainable buildings and sustainable transportation. That's the main things. And when I say we're getting into things that are way beyond a handful of volunteers, that's what I'm talking about. These are things that have to be done as a community. Next slide. This is the Massachusetts updates. Next slide. Okay, green communities. So we've done almost everything with green communities, except of course set up a system to donate to the Renewable Energy Trust Fund. We finally, with the help of our legislative team, passed a law that allows us to make that decision as a town, even though we are one of 4 towns in RMLD. The other towns don't have to do this, don't have to participate as green communities, but we can. We have to do this, putting both there, the law says we have to show that Reading has chosen to adopt the renewable energy charge. We don't know what that means. DOER has to write regulations that say, if you do this and that and this and that, that means we can check that box. That's one of the things we have to do. The other thing we have to do is set up a charging mechanism through RMLD to collect the fee and submit it. And they've been working on that for a while. Greg's talked quite a bit about that. So we're in good shape. Now the green communities, 17 of Reading's 23 peer communities are green communities. And they collect about $125,000 a year on the average. Now, when I say on the average, not every community applies for a grant every year. In fact, you can't apply for a grant if you're working on one. So if you haven't completed your last grant, you don't apply for a new one, right? So they don't apply every year. And some don't apply hardly ever, and some are really aggressive. But overall, they are collecting $125,000 each, and a typical award might be double that for one town, one application. But just to get a sense of what we might look at over a long period of time, because our total Reading charges are going to be about $63,000 a year. So that's a two for one. If we just sort of are an average, if we're more aggressive, if we apply for more things more often, then we're better than 2 for 1. Next slide. The Stretch Energy Code. So the Stretch Energy Code, this is one where I started to put some information in here and decided we weren't going to get out tonight if we really talked about it. But we are signed up for the center column there, the stretch code, and the changes to this code are going into effect. The residential changes have gone into effect already, and there are commercial changes that are going into effect in July. And some of the rules are pretty complicated, but there's a conceptual simplification in the way they're doing these stretch code. The residential codes use the home energy rating system. It's a HERS number. It's a value compared to some baseline home at some point, and those are tightening. Also, the commercial code. Now there are 5 ways to satisfy the commercial code, but the commercial code is headed toward the use of what they call the thermal energy demand intensity, which is another number that asks how much energy per square foot does it take to cool this building and heat this building. So for all the things you might have seen about various energy efficiency and insulation and all that kind of all washes away. In this, where it just uses this number, it says how much energy does it take to heat and cool this building, and that's where they're going. So these are things for us to be alert to as we go forward. There have been a number of other changes. You have to have things like electric vehicle ready, utilities. If you build a new building with gas, the requirements are more stringent than if you build an all-electric building. Not only is the energy efficiency requirement higher, but you have to provide solar on the roof, and you have to provide electric connections to everywhere for every gas appliance. You have to provide an electrical connection such that you could swap the stove out and put an electric stove in, for example. So I mean, it really gets pretty ugly pretty fast. They are trying to push away from gas. And the next slide. This is taken. I'm not going to go through all these items, but you've got them. These are items out of Massachusetts Clean Energy and Climate Plan. This is the 2030 version, but it does show some transition there on the right for the buildings of how we're going electric by 2050. So this is a long-term goal. But it's also a 2030 goal. I mean, you can just pick the number off the chart and see that we actually have to scramble to achieve that. And then under transportation, it's just a list of items. A lot of them you're familiar with, like multifamily zoning near your transit stations, for example. That's one of those goals. All right, and I think that's it. Next slide. Yeah, I think it's just, yeah. So I guess I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Board members? Carol?
First, thank you. That's a lot of, good information for us and for the residents, but for your farmer's market comment related to the bid. If you want to see a farmer's market this season, the bid hasn't been formed. So
Right.
the bid hasn't been formed. So that's not going to happen this season with the bid. So if you as a group really want to see it happen, most likely too late, but it should have been started at the end of last season because you have all the vendors already out there, but maybe it's not impossible. But if you want to see a farmer's market for this season, then act upon it, because reach out to the Wakefield director, reach out to the Melrose director and get the list of vendors, because I would love to see a farmer's market on the common. Not by the depot, on the common. Then you have to pick a day and what's conducive, because we're late to the party, very late for farmers markets as far as vendors. A lot of vendors have scaled back because of COVID. Vendors used to do 5, 10, 15 farmers markets a week. It was another source of income. A lot of them have cut back to the best ones. So just for that, I would love to see a farmers market in town. It's really a job. So if there's any way you can get it off the ground, great, and maybe the bid could take it over. But I think we'd all love to see a farmers market in Reading.
You had commented when we met that you also were sure that it needed to be professionally managed, and
Pretty much.
another-
It's a big endeavor. It's not as easy as you think.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Actually. Okay, you guys want to make a statement? Add something? Elaborate?
Ray Porter.
Can you come up to the podium, please?
Yeah, I'm Ray Porter, Secretary of the Climate Advisory Committee, and I've been on the committee since the inception. And it's one of those tasks which, as we go through it, kind of every little thing is kind of a bit of a struggle. But having been on the committee since the inception, we really made a lot of progress. Really, it's been amazing. I was tasked to go back and look at the original climate action plan that we had put together. And a good number of those things, when we wrote them down, it was like, really? We can do this? And a lot's been accomplished. So, as we take the next step and do a little bit more, it's really great to see how far we've come and some of the big things we're beginning to take on. So it's been a good team and great response from the community. I do want to thank the community for the support, and they're embracing the challenge that we've kind of put out there. And thank the select board for supporting us in that effort too. So, thank you.
Charlie, yeah, did you want to say anything? All right. Any
Board member comments, questions?
I just like to comment that this was a phenomenal presentation and it is jam-packed. Thank you. And actually, it didn't even take you that long to share with the rest of the community. So I was so excited to see it. And yeah, thank you all. It's like, we've been living in a pandemic and still got all this stuff done as a community. It's amazing. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you folks very much. I'm sorry, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you for this. Just a question on the status of green communities. It was something I had asked about in a previous meeting, actually, with respect to Fidel's kind of goals for the year ahead. So what would be required both procedurally and in terms of funding to establish and contribute to a renewable energy trust fund? Because that looks like on page 208 or on the green community slide to be like the big outstanding item.
So as far as contributing,
Yeah,
that is a fee that is collected through your electric bill and passed on. There's no specific thing for the town.
okay,
Except I suppose as we get into grant proposals, we'll have to contribute management of the grant and things like that. The tricky part is the what does it take just to check the box that says we want to do it, and satisfy the law? Because it has to be, if it's something that requires a town meeting vote,
Yeah.
which it almost certainly does.
yeah,
Then you've got to align that schedule, the April-November schedule with the Green Communities application schedule, which is more of a February-August schedule.
Yeah.
And anyway, we could get tangled up and I don't know if they're going to give us the grace period to say, yes, you've done all this stuff.
got it.
We're just filling in a deficiency and you're good to go, or if they're gonna make us go back and rework something. If we have to rework something, it's just a big delay, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, to your question, yeah, so I reached out to the delegates, a couple of weeks ago, we went through this again, periodically we're going through this, and asking them to reach out to DOR, and Rep. Haggerty said he would, and I'm not sure, I think Rep. Jones reached out to you, and as you mentioned, Greg's also what are you guys waiting for? I'm ready to go, you just need to tell me what to do.
Yeah,
He's actually waiting, RMLD's waiting for DOR
we
as
had
well.
to slow him down. He was
Yeah.
ready to go. I said, well,
And
we're not ready to start charging people money yet.
also, one of my frustrations has been in the past 3 years, they've literally changed the application window every single year. It was in 220, they changed it to when we started in 219, it was the fall, and then it was anytime in 220, and then it was a couple times in 221, and then, so it's a little arbitrary, and it has been really hard for Reading, and it's quite frankly not very responsive to the needs of the community, so it's a big source of frustration for myself.
If you go back to the November meeting when we voted on an energy improvement plan, I think an awful lot hinges on that. As long as we can use that plan as our energy improvement demonstration, I think we're in pretty good shape. If we get to a point where we have to start over or have a new start date for an energy plan, then we have already plucked a lot of the low hanging fruit, and it'll be quite a bit harder to do that. So I just hope they don't want us to go there, that we can use the things that we've submitted.
And that, the energy reduction plan was adopted and funded at November 21,
Yes.
2021, okay.
The application, and a formal application to Green Communities was submitted by the deadline, I think it was
End of
December,
the-
so that's why it was fall. That was a component of submitting the application. And since then, it's been hurry up and wait, and unfortunately, right now, also, we're gonna get a new rep at MAPC. So, yeah, it's fun.
So do we also is there a new head for DOER that's coming in under the Healy administration? I assume that's
Yeah, I think
appointed.
so. There's a new one just appointed, right? I don't remember the name, but yes,
Yeah, we got,
brand new.
yeah, maybe our state delegation can spend some time meeting this person.
I think we should keep reminding them, and we aren't the only ones. We weren't the only community that we helped by pushing for this change, so they're the same communities. Okay, so misery loves company. Hopefully we'll get there on the bright side. The rules they have changed. Melrose was awarded $500,000. So they opted to apply for a couple of years worth of grants all at once for a really big project. And I could think of a couple we might do that for. So just trying to be patient.
And keep pushing. Thanks, David. Okay, now we will vote to close the warrant for April town meeting. So I guess first question, so we went through the warrant last meeting. Any items that folks would like to talk about from warrant articles? I had brought up one question related to the stabilization fund for special education, which I don't understand yet. I had hoped to kind of get some more clarification before now, but I'm going to be able to meet with the superintendent next week to kind of learn a little bit more. The school committee can bring it forward. I think that obviously it would impact town finances. We all need to see kind of what's going on with this and what they have in mind. What I think went through the school committee had some options, and I'd like to kind of understand what that means, and I know town meeting will want to know what that means also, so. Hopefully I can report back after my meeting next week. Are there other items or that item that people want to talk about? Chris?
I just had two. So Article 22, which we just went over with the mandatory kilowatt charge. Is there a way that we can put a fail-safe in there so that the percentage will not increase over a certain amount each year?
So I will start by saying that most likely, but based on our experiences in the last 6 months, most likely Article 22 is going to be definitely postponed. And this is at the recommendation of town council. Essentially, what's happening is the legislation was passed.
September, October.
I think it was later than that because it needs 90 days for it to be live.
It was like late September.
It's basically March, I want to say. So anyways, the DOER is, they are reviewing the legislation, and they are going to provide legal guidance on basically what is the process to adopt this charge. And they're saying that most likely it will be some form of vote from the body, right? And that body in Reading is town meeting. What we don't know is what that vote looks like, what the requirements of the vote. So town council has said, it doesn't make sense for us to vote on this, for us to bring this to town meeting if we don't know if this is what we need. So it might the stars might align, and we might get guidance in early March, and it might align with this language, but it might not.
So that brings up a good point. So what if we get guidance before town meeting? Another option then becomes a modification on the floor to this article that potentially matches and potentially satisfies. So that could be a way to salvage this if they can give us guidance before town meeting, before that actual night when we need to vote on this. Otherwise, yeah.
That is potentially, yeah. I mean, I just reached out to them while we were sitting here, but we should reach out to. So and part of those questions is going to be things like that, right? Can we implement caps? Can we implement all those things? I have no idea. I mean, we haven't issued guidance. I'll tell you that I'm familiar with how it's implemented in non-municipal light plant communities, right? And essentially, it's a pass-through from EverSource or National Grid. There's no negotiating. There's no nothing. It goes on your bill at the bottom, and it's a pass-through essentially from the utility provider to the Renewable Energy Trust Fund, which is managed by the Massachusetts Center for Clean Energy, Mass CEC.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a long answer to say, I don't know.
Yeah, because 35 cents a month is like nothing. It's when it becomes X amount each year in perpetuity, it becomes the problem. So if there can be caps or something can be done to make sure that doesn't happen. And then Article 23, is that just seeking for it to be automatic anytime anyone misses town meeting like that in the future?
No. So that article is in place in every town meeting. It is the language from every town meeting, and in the Warren report, you'll see a spreadsheet basically that says every member and how many sessions they missed. So it's exactly the same. It's a vote of town meeting. It's the option to vote, but it is no different than every year.
Because I thought Angela mentioned something last time around about this scenario with town meeting members being missed and all that. Am I just creating this thing in my head?
My understanding is that this article, it goes on every town meeting. It didn't go in April because it was after the 10-year election, and therefore everyone was new. But it went in November. Same article, and it basically says it has basically town meeting has the option to vote people that haven't attended. My understanding is that it rarely happens.
You have Laura looking right over your shoulder.
Laura.
She's in the woods.
It's part of the charter. We have no choice. That article has to go on every year.
So Laura, didn't Angela bring up something regarding this exact same scenario with people getting removed and all that?
Yes, she was asking to not have this article, but we have no choice. In order to not do it, we have to change our charter.
And the context, I think, was, so yeah, that probably ended the discussion. Well, we're gonna review the charter, we could add it to the list of things we wanna take a look at and think about, but, in the case where you might see repeatedly the same names coming up year after year, and she and some others felt that perhaps that was inappropriate, and, we want members that are willing and dedicated and able to commit, so. But again, so thank you for answering that question.
Please, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Court on Ridge Road. The other piece of that I had discussions about was that we always do that in April, whereas it seemed to make more sense to do it in November. So you remove them in November, and then those seats would open up for the town election in the following March or April.
Yep.
As opposed to, I think now if you remove them, I'm not sure, maybe the precinct can fill that vacancy with the precinct meeting before, but it's not a townwide election sort of a thing, right? It's, you have to know, oh, hey, if you show up at this special meeting ahead of time, which is a little less open than a brand wide open.
And we have to advertise it, so you're kind of playing catch up like the rest of the volunteers.
So it would be better, to move it to the November subsequent town meeting, but, it might be a charter thing as opposed to something we could do.
Laura, can we ask your opinion on that one? Is that charter change territory?
That is a charter change.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, short answer.
And when is the charter review thing, a year or two?
Couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years out.
I believe it's due in 2025, is that right, Laura? Yeah, due in 20, so we should start in 24.
Someone keeping a running list of the 15 things that have been brought up in the last years?
Laura is.
No, perfect, thank you, Laura. Enjoy the woods.
We probably should talk about Article 21 just for a moment also. So Article 21 is about 17 Harnden Street, and it actually has two pieces attached. One piece relates to the land itself, the 17 Harnden, and the other would relate to what we would do to it. And I'm going to assume it's there so that we have ultimate flexibility. Given where we are, today is February 21st, it is close to impossible that we could have this fully figured out by then in terms of both of these pieces, right? So the intention of putting it here was to talk about it, kind of indefinitely postpone it such that there could be a presentation to give the community an update as to what the standing is. And the expectation would be that, if we're able to come to an agreement with the owners, then that would kind of be the update that's going on. Then we would be hiring a project manager, an architect, and then doing the planning. And we could talk about what time frame that meant for all things. If I was just kind of ballparking stuff, probably would mean that we could have drawings kind of summertime, and then perhaps have a special town meeting that takes place right at the start of the fall. And then we would want to have a special election to follow that. So kind of under the best timing scenario, that might be a town meeting somewhere in the September timeframe, and then a special election probably November, early November, something like that. That's if everything goes to plan. Any other articles for discussion? Jay?
Just a question, Fidel, on Article 18, the authorization for the RMHS turf. What was the reason for that? Was it just cost came in lower than expected, or was there?
That's exactly right. So this was voted in April 22, 2019, right? So the project is fully done. And we basically bids came in after the bond of the debt authorization of 2.25. So we actually never borrowed for it.
Okay.
So it's more of a cleanup thing from an accounting standpoint, just to officially reduce the borrowing so that in the capital plan and debt plan it shows accurately. But the money that wasn't spent, the Turf 2 was done before Turf 1, which was just wrapped up this past summer. I mean, they're long past done.
Yeah.
No issues.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Other questions? All right, you have a motion for us, please? Now we can do the motion.
Move to close the annual town meeting warrant consisting of 23 articles to take place on the April 24th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Karen. Any comments, discussion? None appearing. Let's take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0. Warrant is closed. Meadowbrook Lot 5 property and proposed usage update. Al, you want to start us off?
Sure. Caitlin, if you don't mind going to page, what do we see? Page
224.
All right. Which one is the best picture? 224? No, let's go somewhere else. Yeah, page 228, actually. So as you might recall, we have been working on this parking lot, which is essentially located at Lot 5. Lot 5. We were so this design was done by Weston and Sampson. We were able to accommodate 17 parking spots. I think that's right. And two of those 17 parking spots are designated handicap spots. Those are the ones in the corner. They have to be paved with asphalt in order to be handicap compliant. So those two will be the only ones paved in asphalt. All the rest would be basically a gravel parking lot. You'll see in the drawing that it's surrounded by a wooden guardrail, essentially on the periphery of the parking lot. There is a proposed location for portable bathrooms, porta potties, at the edge of the parking lot, and away from the street and away from visibility, but also allowing the truck that would service it, not from us, but the contractor, to come in and pump them out on a weekly basis as needed. What we're also showing is the guardrail essentially extending from Lot 5 and going past Lot 5 in either direction. The idea is that we would create basically a deterrent from cars to continue parking on that street, but also create a walking path that would allow residents to walk from the parking lot along Grove Street and into the parking lot. This was submitted and approved by the state. So all of the hurdles that we initially were considering from a permitting standpoint are done, and they have given us essentially 3 years to build this out. I do want to highlight that towards the top of the parking lot, you'll see kind of a little path that goes that goes beyond the property. There is an existing pedestrian walking path that goes, essentially is existing and has been used, but is not formalized, and there is no official easement in place. We are having conversations with Meadowbrook to officially designate that as an official easement, which would allow the Trails Committee to do signage, do some maintenance on the on that walkway. We are also requesting, so now that we have this, we've got to do some final drawings and put this out to bid. We don't feel like it's something that we would be able to do in-house. So we have a request before town meeting in April as part of Article 5, the budget changes to it's $27,500 to basically take this to the end and do bid documents and put this out to bid to see how much it costs. If you recall, we got an earmark, right? So the state delegation got us $150,000, which essentially we used to pay down the original $450. Because it was an earmark and we received it in FY22, it basically had to be closed out with the budget, but there was a significant decrease on the original price of the property based on that earmark.
Questions?
Thanks, Mark. Just a couple questions, clarifications, whatever scenario it ends up being. 6 months ago during the Simon's Way, if we were going to have it, when it's supposed to be, et cetera, I made the comment that we were, already doing stuff with Lot 5, even though we had no public input. And how is that any different than Simon's Way, et cetera, and whatnot? And here we are, fast forwarded, we have plans done, parking lot, et cetera, with zero public input on any of this since we bought it. I said at the time, we said we were going to do this, and we went ahead and we're just going to do it without getting any feedback. And here we are. It looks as if that's completely what just transpired. I understand that this is most likely the best option for over there. I understand it's super unsafe and all that stuff, but I'm just wondering how we just skip by all of these things.
Chuck and I, Tyrone, our conservation administrator, we walked this area several times, and the main concern was the abutters, right? Like the people in front, and so we physically and personally met with them, and they shared a lot of concerns, about bringing, additional people, possible issues that might come up when this parking is in place. So we spoke to them about it. The Conservation Commission held, I believe, two meetings that were publicly advertised to review this process. I am by no means saying that the process was perfect. I just wanted to say that Chuck and I, at least we tried our best.
And I guess my second thing is that the addition of the bathrooms over there, I understand, obviously you want to have bathrooms, et cetera, which brings up when I decided to play pickleball for the first time with Carlo over at Washington Park. When I was leaving, I said, Memorial Park. It doesn't matter, they're all going to be the same in this example.
True.
I said when I was leaving, because, I've never really been over there, where do people go to the bathroom? And the answer is they don't. And now we're going to be putting bathrooms over here for 17 parking spots when we have these other locations that are just filled with a billion people. It just doesn't sit with me.
These are porta potties, right?
But even still, you could have them over
their bathroom
at Washington Park, Memorial Park, all of them.
in Birch Meadow, that building, right, is gonna be to add like nice actual, I don't know if there's a restriction in place. I know that Bill Brown always talks about a restriction in Memorial Park. I'm not sure if there's a restriction to porta potties, but I'll look into that. Like, can we put porta potties in Washington Park? Memorial Park, sorry.
So historically, it's been a challenge. And for when my kids grew up, there were no bathrooms anywhere, right? And that doesn't mean you don't have to go to the bathroom. That just means there were no places to go. So the progress at Birch Meadow was fantastic. We heard when some of the sports teams, I think baseball, softball perhaps, were in, that during the season, in some cases, they put in porta potties. They get a permitted and put them in as well to address this need. It's a need. It would be great to figure out how best to manage it, but it has to be done kind of piece by piece. On this property, I just wanted to add a couple things. One, abutters included not just Grove Street abutters, but also the neighbors, the owners of the other lots, and the neighbors in the back and on the side, which would be Meadowbrook. So they were all consulted in the process to make sure that the needs were considered. There were certain requirements, and then the very precarious balance was making sure we could satisfy the state, because there are very severe limits on things that could or couldn't be done here. So this is kind of a good approach based on that. That focuses on the need that was established when we decided to buy one lot only, and that one being the one closest to the town forest. We're working with Meadowbrook and hope to be able to, have some good updates that way. Having the guardrails and things in place also kind of creates options, if you will, as need be. Having the bathrooms there, these would be kind of the only town forest facilities that I'm aware of.
It was, there has been, I don't know, it appears, it disappears, sometimes there is a porta potty at the end of Stroud Ave. Like and that's a recent thing, because it's been an issue.
Yeah. So for the number of people
It's been a
using
need.
the town forest and things, this is, I think, a welcome relief, pardon the pun.
Yeah, and I know that when we went to look at traffic on Indiana Road, they had just put a porta potty there for softball. I mean, I'll ask the question. I don't see why not.
Yep.
Why couldn't we have porta
Yeah, I
potties in
mean, I don't
Washington
know
Park?
how much they cost and whatnot, but like I said, this is for 17 parking spots over here compared to, there's 17 people parked over at Birch Meadow right now. Like, I just think that, I understand that the area is gonna be nice and new and it's, been much needed for a long time over there. But still, like, there's other areas in town that need this kind of attention as well. I don't want to be advocating for porta potties everywhere in Reading, but still, like, it just, I don't know.
It's absolutely a need to be reviewed. I think that obviously you need to talk to neighbors before kind of installing them in different places. This is pretty out of the way in terms of worrying about neighbors. Memorial Park may be a different story, but without asking, we don't know.
I think it would be, I don't know, better for neighbors to see kids going in there as opposed to wherever they're going at the moment.
So to speak.
And just finally, do we still know if we get the easement and all that, do we know about this whole handicap scenario? Are we gonna have to put in access, or like what's the legal ramifications?
Yeah, we checked on that. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'll try to repeat what the lawyer told me, which is basically we don't need to provide access to all areas, but what we do need to provide is a recreational component to this. So what I mean by that is people, not the entire town forest needs to be ADA now, but people who have accessibility challenges could basically walk and take the other path, right, along Grove Street. So it doesn't mean now that all the town forest now needs to be all ADA accessible. So essentially, I asked the question and they said this is fine.
Also, I think the Trails Committee has some ideas in terms of what might be, they might be able to do a lot of other accessibility type issues. separate from this in terms of funding, in terms of everything else, but there's an area, I believe, up by Wood End, actually, that they thought could be really interesting for this application that would provide a bit more of a path, so more of an area to actually, travel across. Different project, different timing, but to Fidel's point, not required here. But nonetheless, pretty interesting project at some point.
And the easement does look like it's going to happen, or doesn't?
Based on every conversation that I've had, and I don't want to speak for Meadowbrook, so I'll be a little careful, but.
Well, you don't have to answer the question, I unless you already knew, like,
Nothing is signed yet.
okay.
Discussions are ongoing,
Ongoing.
but there are active discussions. It's there's nothing happening. There are discussions. Jackie?
Question, is there, for the state earmark, is there a deadline by which we have to use it or lose it?
So we received that last year.
Yeah.
So we got it and we used it. We essentially
Got it, for this, okay,
drew down basically the purchase price.
okay.
It is tied to a fiscal year, isn't it?
It was last year.
Okay. So do you get it like right after July 1st and you just have to use it by the next?
Correct, typically. Yeah, so we got it, last spring, 22, calendar year 22, we got it last spring, and at that point, we had already bought it. So we just drew down essentially the purchase price by $150,000.
Any other questions? Carlo?
I know we heard from Director Butters on this lot, in all five, whatever month that was. And you said you and Chuck, you went and knocked on doors, was it a mailing, or what happened? Like, did you share the same concerns, different concerns, now that, like, what were the?
So, part of the conservation.
Do a mailing.
Was a mailing, exactly. As part of a public hearing. We went and actually talked to people. And our concern was essentially the people who are right in front, right? I mean, who are going to see it. And the shared concerns that probably anyone would have, who's going to monitor this, who's going to make sure that it's clean, who's going to, is PD going to drive around at night and make sure that no one is hanging out there at night.
Who's gonna manage the kids?
Yeah, well, all those concerns.
So, Karen?
Jackie, this sounds consistent with sort of what has been done with the water tower. Does this sound consistent? I don't expect every project to be the same, but now I know Fidel's been out there walking around talking to neighbors about this. I will say I've already had one resident say, oh, that's so exciting that we're getting new sidewalks and updates, and we're winning grants for Oakland Road, so will there be an opportunity for residents to find out more? And I told them yes, without being too specific, but
I mean, Fidel and town staff have been very communicative, especially for kind of big milestones in the project. And kind of big, keeping us informed of what the next steps are. But I do think it's kind of apples and oranges in terms of, the kind of project, and the impact on the neighborhood has been a bit different, but yeah. I mean, there's been good communication.
and in that case, we had for the water tower, there were CPDC hearings, publicly advertised CPDC hearings. So for this project, there were publicly advertised Conservation Commission hearings. Yeah, they're very different. Okay, thanks.
All set? Okay, let's roll on. Discussion on a strategic plan for Reading. So, in kind of championing this a little bit, I have had discussions with, at this point, only one member of CPDC. I wanted to make sure that we weren't getting into a territorial kind of issue here in thinking about this. And I believe that we're not. It needs a bit more discussion about that, but I think it can work. Fidel had sent me some information about how Wakefield is working on this. And I believe they got some grant money, but also are using some of their own funds. And they've created kind of a partnership which involves the different planning boards and committees in town. And they created a community advisory board that would work with it also, so that it's not just the people on committees, but kind of outside members or outside potential members also. And that, to me, so far is looking kind of interesting. I think what I would love to hear is what concerns, ideas board members have. And then I'd love to kind of maybe look at the structure of Wakefield, maybe some other communities, see what that community advisory board looks like, and then maybe come back with a proposal to build something like that to help lead the effort. So I wanted to kind of launch that to folks and see what thoughts people have about it. Okay.
I mean, we've talked about in the past, I mean, one of my main concerns is water and sewer going forward and the funds and what our capital spending will look like, you know, at least 5 years out, and just the impact, because, you know, every year we have to set the rates, and every year it's getting more, it's getting more challenging. So that's one aspect, and yeah, I think it's, you know, we have the capital plan, and we know Killam is in the works, and we know what school is next, and right now the fields are in good condition, but yeah, but now we have to deal with the bleachers. That's next, and then what else is next? Obviously, I want pickleball courts everywhere. That's not gonna happen right now, but there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, so I think for me, water and sewer, you know, I wish we spent more ARPA money on that, but we didn't. And what that's gonna look like and how the rates, because, you know, for the residents, I think it's, you know, taxes and water and sewer rates. Those are the two biggest things that they're dealing with. You know, utilities, we're lucky we have a municipal light department, because a lot of people are hurting with other providers, the impact for gas and electric. Us on the electric side, that's been pretty good for the 4 communities. So for me, that would be one thing that would really want to drill down as much as we could, as much as, you know, DPW and engineering could lay out. I know they can, but really, how much more do the reserves need? Do we use free cash? You know, stuff like that. I mean, I didn't know we're using that much free cash this year until I looked at the budget, $3 million. And we have it, but it's going downhill. And we peaked on free cash, now we're not bottoming out, but we're going back towards levels of potentially we were at, you know, 6-7 years ago, which happens.
Before I recognize Jeffrey, I think that the forecasts don't really consider regeneration fully, and the picture always is going to look very conservative for that reason. If you go back in history and see kind of what happened after the forecast of it dropping, very recently, last several years, it's actually gone up, not down.
Right.
One big exception is making a $2 million allocation for the Killam drawings and activities. That's a change, you know, outside of what's going on here. So I think that part of the reason of thinking about this holistically is because we do have so many priorities to think about. And, you know, there's infrastructure, there's capital, but in exchange for that are the services that the town needs and expects. And what should those be? And I think having kind of that vision is something that helps us kind of evaluate things and see what's going on. We have to deal with MBTA communities. We have to deal with affordable housing. And, you know, town meeting felt pretty strongly about that. We're talking about a senior center as well as schools. So we have all these different things going on. Then you can add, you know, floors for this building and all these other activities. It's massive. Right now, I don't want to oversimplify, but we're kind of knocking things out as we have to, more so than planning for them. And I think there may be an opportunity to get community input, which gets community buy-in, to make sure that we're focused on kind of the right priorities. We can measure what we're doing and look up to kind of that vision. Is it getting us toward where we want to be? Maybe that helps us change priorities on different things. And I think it becomes an additional resource to the town in terms of how we think about things. So I hear you loud and clear, infrastructure, capital, big projects, and services. What are they? What should they be? We could certainly spend a ton more than we have. Probably not a really good idea. Jeffrey, did you want to comment specifically on that one?
No, what you were saying about the projections for free cash are conservative.
Yeah.
They do generate.
We've been conservative for many years. My time in finance committee, we were always very conservative also. And as a financial practice, I don't have an issue with that. But the reality is you also have to kind of reckon up and see what's going on. You don't want to stunt your potential by thinking that the sky is falling and then every year saying, oh, actually it didn't happen. Actually, it didn't happen again and again and again and again. So that's part of why we got to do this planning. And I think there's an ability, there's a need to do it, and we don't really have a group in town kind of that would have that real purview. And I think it would be really helpful to set it up for the select board. Other comments? Sorry, Jackie.
I'd be curious to learn more about what Wakefield is doing or it proposes to do as an example. It does strike me as a concern that we're struggling to fill existing boards and committees. I don't think that's a reason not to do it, but I think we also need to create a structure that's sustainable in terms of volunteer commitment. And I also just wonder out loud, does the role of the finance committee come into play here? And, the discussions on the finance committee, while maybe not as holistic as what you're talking about, do approach sort of a, capital planning. And so is there, if we decide to proceed with this, is there a way that we can include the finance committee's discussions and work on this?
So I think that they're actually quite different, but they should be involved in the same way that other groups and committees are also. Finance committee role is more focusing on fiscal, I'm going to call it prudence and responsibility, more so than priorities. And this is much more thinking on the priority side of things and recommending back to the groups that actually have kind of the decision-making over that.
And that's understood and agreed with the finance committee's charter there, but I do still think that they have a role in the discussion too. And, if we decide to proceed with it, I would want to see their involvement kind of front and center.
Yeah, I think you could think of FinCom, Select Board, schools, CPDC. I mean, there are a lot of folks that we have to kind of figure out through that grouping. And then I think the community input's another kind of different angle to add to it also. So yes, I don't think we do it today. And I think we should. And that's kind of why this thinking is going. Just add quickly on Wakefield, what their next step, they just kind of got started. And one of the first things they're doing is a community survey to kind of kick things off. They've just announced that survey is public. That's what's going on. Karen?
This reminds me of the discussion we were having with the finance committee, and I hear like two different things. Investment priorities for the community, and capital planning. And so we did have a discussion with FinCom, and I think we came away with that kind of with a select board to do of, let's talk about how do we want to do capital planning for the community. And it seems to me, listening to you work through this, that comes out of this strategy plan. Once we've decided what we want to do, what the community wants to do, then how do we execute and how do we pay for it? Yeah, so you're right.
I think these are ands more than they are ors at the moment.
Well, I mean, I'm glad Jackie brought it up because her point about the volunteers is really, I'm looking at the vacancies now. Now we are struggling. We're literally struggling right now. And I think if we proceed with this, we're gonna have to make a subject to, in my opinion, because we can't continue down this path with zoning, CPDC, recreation, and conservation. It's just unsustainable. Because what if people don't re-up in 2023? And then we're just at a huge deficit. So it's good to talk about, but I think we should definitely wait for the next cycle of, trying to fill some of these vacancies and see who doesn't re-up. And if some key people don't re-up, then some boards won't be able to meet for some crazy reason if that happens. I don't want that to happen, but, we've had some tenured people leave recently, some boards. And so, that was a great point she brought up, so it's something for me to be continued, but I don't think it's urgent at the moment. The priority is to get these boards in good standing and have the big boards, the planning and the land boards with only one vacancy, not 2 and 3. I think that should be our focus as a select board.
I think it's a point well taken in terms of we're struggling to get volunteers, but I think I'm going to take the positive side. We need to figure out how to do it, right? It can't be an issue of oh gosh, it's got to be of, how do we make people get a better sense of accomplishment from participating and want to do it? And it may be talking to more of the new residents. It may be, this is on the multiple choice exam, all of the above. How do we do it? We haven't figured out the magic. And we need to figure it out. I don't think I would use it as a reason to not proceed, but I would also say, yikes, we would need to find some folks that really wanted to do this, that could contribute to it and would commit to it. And again, if it's just taking away the same short list, that's a problem. Figure out how to make things work.
Well, that's my concern.
Yeah.
The people that you may or may not want on this committee are people that are good fits potentially with backgrounds, engineers, architects, whatever, for the ones that we already can't fill. So I know you're more in the and world than or lately this past year, and I get it, but we got to get this figured out. And we're not going to solve it tonight, but I don't have an answer.
None of us do, I don't think, yeah.
A
Karen?
quick question, do you had in mind that this was anything creating a plan to me said ad hoc committee, is that what you were thinking?
Probably that's the structure. I want to take a look more closely at
Okay.
what other communities are doing
Sure.
first.
Okay.
And the community engagement aspect, I think, is a really good part of it too.
Mhm.
And maybe that reaches to a new group of people. But, look, we run on volunteers. And right now, it would be great if we could encourage more people to participate and then they'd want to do it. So we do have to focus on that. That's a key point. I don't doubt it. Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I think there has to be a significant shock to the system for anything like this to change or turn around. I don't know how many applications came since the article in the Chronicle or whatever. If there's 0, I don't know what to tell you. Like, something significantly has to change. And I think by starting more where you're going to appoint FinCom members or somebody else to, eventually all these people are just going to get burnt out too from just attending all these other separate meetings. And it's something significantly has to be done because we're not dealing with 4 vacancies. It's like 30 something, like I said. So I don't know if we have to start funding them with gift cards to Target or something to get people in the door, but something has to be done. We can't just carry on. The next quorum that's not met somewhere is, it's going to be happening more often than not. So
let's have a select board challenge, let's have a liaison
No.
challenge, if you're the liaison, we'll have a throwdown, we'll bring in the recruits.
And Chris, to your point earlier about the people that did come in and why they came in. So some of it was word of mouth and some of it saw it in an article, some of it saw it here, some of it saw it on social media. Yeah, but we need to shake it up a little bit somehow. We need to figure out how to make it more enticing somehow. And I don't know that that we're doing bad things, but we still need more volunteers. So it's a question of how do we figure that out?
are we allowed to pay people? Like, do we have to change the charter for this to happen? Or like, how do you Because I know before Ann left, she mentioned about, the select board being paid, et cetera. Now, none of us is going to agree to any of this while we're all here. But still, like, do we have to take this approach? I know that Cambridge, their select board, like, it's like, free childcare.
Can I suggest, let's turn this into an agenda item? Because I think we kind of have strayed off topic a little bit, though it's an important discussion, enough so that I think we should talk about it.
And the agenda is volunteer stipends?
Well, how about just volunteer, fostering volunteerism?
We can make a dance video like school committee.
Yeah, that's true. That's great. That'll be good.
See what we can do. Okay, any,
Segue?
let's, what is
Is
that?
that an excellent segue to the next
Oh,
item?
I thought you said Subway, and I was like,
Sorry.
wait. Segue.
Large meatball.
Discuss future agendas. So here, I think we've come up with a new topic we want to add there.
No, are we here? We're not doing this?
We just did Meadowbrook 5, we
That's
did the
fine.
strategic plan, we're not doing that. That's what I
Oh.
announced at the beginning.
Oh, I
We're not.
missed that, sorry.
It's, because of being closed on Fridays and having a Monday holiday,
Okay.
we didn't have 48 hours.
Okay. So
we
there's
can't do
still
it.
time, select board challenge, let's see how many applications we can get in before the VAS gets rescheduled.
And what do we win?
I don't know, what do you want?
well,
What do you want?
It's intrinsic
Let's make
rewards.
it interesting.
Pizza.
Yeah, okay.
So food does draw people to
Food
meetings.
works.
I have to say.
Chocolate?
Never steal a bad idea.
Chocolate, sure, chocolate, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we know someone who can help with that.
At wholesale, sure, yeah. No big deal. Wholesale price.
Awesome. Any other future agenda items? So we're pretty well set for next,
I think we're pretty well set.
yeah,
Yep. What's shown in the packet, I think, for the most part, is all set.
okay.
Next meeting is not, this is cut off, mine, it's not March 21st.
No,
March
7th.
Yeah, okay.
There should be both, right?
The
So,
packet I have open just has, it was something was cut off, it's only still on the 21st. Like a month off, yes.
no.
FinCom's meeting every night, every week, to discuss the budget.
And so we'll get posted for those meetings so that whatever board members are able to attend can attend, right? Okay, great. All right, meeting minutes. My minutes were actually cut off. I think the first page was cut off of mine.
Yes.
It was a very long packet, just for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting to be on historical level.
264, yeah.
Well, so one quick thing before we go to that, because it is cut off, and I know you mentioned one or two meetings ago to Chris's comment about looking at revisiting town council contracts. I guess that's coming up.
That is on March 7th.
Next
Okay.
meeting.
That's right.
8 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually, if we could find that page, or even go to the last meeting, that's, but yes, that's
Yeah,
March 7th.
I remember, yeah, you
Yep.
mentioned it was coming up.
Yep.
Okay.
Is this Airbnb update ever gonna happen? It's been here since I've been here. We can't just start charging, or what's like the deal with this? Like,
It's a purview of CPDC, but they haven't. I think with everything else that's going on, it hasn't been pushed.
We have something for hotels, but we don't have any hotels. Which is, I think that extends to overnight stays, but I think we talked about it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I don't think that they're impacted by anything currently. I don't think we really have any regulations set up
Right.
about that at all.
But Airbnb specifically.
Right.
I know we have a hotel
Yeah.
tax or whatever you want to call it.
So this is another one. It'd be great to find out what other communities have been doing and how that's been working. Are they dealing with it, not dealing with it, and why? And maybe, not sure where the right source might be. Town council might be actually a source on that to see what those communities are up to. Any other laggards that are sitting there that?
There's a bunch of them on there that have been there for a while. Summer Ave, I don't know what to tell you on that either.
Evolving.
tree lawn pesticide policy, I don't. I think that's been there forever.
I think we're up to date on that, aren't we?
We talked about that, we talked about that a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's still listed on the.
I can delete it right now. Gone.
You had some vast policy changes and recommendations.
Oh, yes, that's true too.
Should we bring that forward?
Yeah, I'm good to go whenever. I know we just kept getting bumped for all other.
Let's bring it in.
craziness.
Let's bring it in.
Yep.
And then Carl, you'll get to us once rec takes a vote, and if there's
Yeah, I
something,
might not, again,
whichever meeting, we'll do
yeah,
it as soon as it's.
no, I wanna, I wanna move
You just
Sturgis
need to
forward.
put at the bottom of that pickleball application, like 1 year as an associate rec member. I'm like, this isn't difficult. Come on. Can't you like twist some arms over there?
I've been trying,
Pickleball court? Twist a little harder.
trying.
Tell them there's free pizza and like, then just deny it when they show up and sit there.
Even I can't get into the rec pickleball things, so there's a wait list.
Well, you get it, if you're a member of the rec committee, if you submit an application, you get a priority. See how we can do this?
Tell you what, let's stay on topic
Yes.
here.
I can't feel the rec, this going down.
Let's stay on topic. Let's take a look at, so we actually have a Word doc of the draft minutes.
Yeah, that's what I looked at.
Sorry, I looked at the packet and didn't go back, which I should have. Has everyone had a chance to look at the Word doc?
Yeah, I'm good.
I did look at it, I was good.
So will you update the packet?
So the packet was missing the first page of these minutes.
Sure, we do that.
So will you post an updated version of the packet?
Sure.
Yeah, so we actually should do that first, shouldn't we?
Is
So
it
why don't we-
necessary? Because the minutes are posted separately, so as long as the correct minutes, after we approve them, as long as like, I don't know if it's necessary, because the minutes will follow along, but I'd be happy to share the doc with you, like
Yeah, or maybe,
right now.
Caitlin, you can put it up,
Okay.
pull up the minutes.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I'll share the Word doc, which also had a correction or that Jackie sent me today.
Yeah, my only correction is under the town manager goals, which I believe is maybe page 3 or 4 of the Word doc. I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't saying that I hope we continue with green communities. I was asking just for more information from town staff on kind of status and obligations. And we got a lot of that tonight from the Climate Advisory Committee.
Just to roll backward just for 1 second, future agendas. When you're ready, we want to do town manager goals.
Yep.
So we should.
That is for March 7th.
It is on the 7th, great, okay. So we had our first discussion about it, now we'll finalize. I'm working my way through, sorry. I can do this in advance. Okay, I'm good. Any other amendments? No? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Move to approve the meeting minutes from February 7, 2023 as amended.
Safer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Carlo. Any discussion? No, we're good. Let's think about all those in favor. Raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0. Any other business for tonight?
It's early, Mark.
Well, that's okay. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? We are adjourned 5-0.